Sorry, I couldn't hear you then, Sue. You're muted, but I'm assuming you're telling me we're live.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, I've managed to mute myself. The meeting is now being live streamed and recorded.
Good, good. Well, a bit of a false start, but never mind. Good evening and welcome to the virtual full council meeting of East Devon District Council on the 21st of February 2022. As your chair, Councillor Ian Thomas, I'd also like to welcome viewers to our live stream on YouTube. Could I remind everyone that due to concerns relating to COVID risk, our council has delegated much of its decision making to senior officers for the period to the 11th of May 2022. Consequently, this evening will be a consultative meeting only. However, we'll work as closely as possible to normal procedural rules as detailed in our constitution. Where our meeting would normally have decided a matter, it will now make recommendation to a senior officer. That officer will then take our recommendation into account when making their decision. May I remind colleagues that the Code of Conduct applies throughout this meeting. We reserve the right to disconnect any disruptive participant. Should there be a break in internet connection or even a power cut like Monday morning, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. Should we not be successful in 15 minutes, we'll consider the meeting adjourned and reconvene at a later date. As this is a large meeting, it's particularly important colleagues ensure microphones are muted when not in use to avoid disturbance from background noise. If you wish to speak, please raise your yellow electronic hand and wait to be called. Appreciate if you could keep your points short and not interrupt while others are speaking. Our full agenda is available online at www.eastdevon.gov.uk. We'll now start the meeting with a roll call of members present. When you hear your name, please unmute your microphone and confirm by saying present. Over to you, Sue.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Armstrong.
Present.
Councillor Arnott.
Present.
Councillor Bailey.
Present.
Councillor Barrow.
Present.
Councillor Bonetta.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Brown.
Present, Sue, but I might have to turn my video off because my internet keeps going down.
Okay. Councillor Bruce.
Present, Chair, and Sue. I'll have to probably do the same as Councillor Brown. Thank you.
Councillor Cahill.
Present.
Councillor Chamberlain. Councillor Chapman.
Present.
Councillor Chubb.
Present.
Councillor Coleman.
Present.
Councillor Desarum.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Davey.
Present. Thank you.
Councillor Dent.
Present.
Councillor Faithful.
Present.
Councillor Gardner.
Present.
Councillor Gazzard.
Present.
Councillor Ian Hall.
Present, Sue, and nice to see you all.
Councillor Hartnell.
Present, Sue, thank you.
Councillor Hawkins.
Present, Sue, thanks.
Councillor Hayward.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Hookway.
Present.
Councillor Howe.
Present.
Councillor Hughes.
Present.
Councillor Ingham.
Present.
Councillor Jackson.
She sent her apologies, Sue.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Young.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Kemp.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Key.
Present, Sue.
Councillor Lawrence.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Ledger.
Present, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Loudon.
Present, Sue. Thanks.
Councillor Manley.
Present.
Councillor McCollum.
Present, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Miller.
Present, and good to see Councillor Hall back. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Moulding.
Present.
Councillor Parr.
Present.
Councillor Pepper,
Present.
Councillor Pook,
Present.
Councillor Pratt,
Present, thank you.
Councillor Ranger,
Present.
Councillor Rickson,
Present.
Councillor Rowland,
Present, thanks, Sue.
Councillor Rylance,
Present, thanks.
Councillor Skinner,
Present, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Taylor,
Present.
Councillor Thomas,
Present.
Councillor Twiss,
Hi, Sue. Present. Thank you.
Councillor Wibley,
Present, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Woodward,
Present, thank you.
Councillor Ragg,
Present.
Councillor Chris Wright,
Present.
Councillor Tom Wright.
Present, thank you, Sue.
Okay, back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Sue. Agenda item 1 is public speaking. I've got 4 members of the public who've registered to speak this evening. 3, Mr. Mike Goodman, Mrs. Sally Maynard and Mrs. Beverly Raw, relating to the budget and car parking, I understand. And Mrs. Beverly Raw is on a different matter, and Mr. Ian Barton was the 3rd person for car parking. So what I propose to do is actually take the 3 speakers relating to the car park budget item first, and then ask Mrs. Raw to speak to us, please. So if I could have Mr. Mike Goodman, you've got 3 minutes to speak, and we will be giving you a 30-second reminder near to the end.
Mr. Chairman and members, the Council Overview and Scrutiny Committee recommended that 8 car parks increase by 100%. And Cabinet members on the 2nd of February agreed this recommendation to go to full council tonight. I understand now that the £2 charges actually applies to 21 car parks, not the 8. How can and on whose authority was this change made? And are members aware it was only 2 weeks ago when the leader himself in the Sidmouth Herald said that it was only going to affect a small selection of prime car parks. He didn't mention it was all car parks in Sidmouth. I note Cabinet was informed on January of this year that the annual profit from car parks was £2.5 million. Now, during the budget process, it was pointed out to members that under legislation, the council could not simply raise car parking charges for the purpose of raising money. They must be mindful of the potential impact on the vulnerable high street, town centre economies, and the priority of providing plenty of affordable car parking in towns to encourage visitors to spend time and money in town centres. Now, I recognise that at some stage, car parking charges need to be reviewed. But the paper is recommending increases and then asking you to agree a car parking strategy. Surely in business members, a strategy comes first. The changes being proposed have not been even subject to any input from the Car Parking Task and Finish Group Forum, who have not met since March of last year when they recommended car parks increase to £1.20, which was endorsed at full council and due to implement in April. I also know there is no report that I can see on the equality and diversity impact, which the council has a legal duty to consider and report before decisions are agreed. Members, these changes are being recommended without a consultation with residents and businesses. This cannot be fair or right. Mr. Chairman and councillors, which councillors are listening to their taxpayers? Who is standing up for the residents with equality and diversity factors? And why have 1,900 residents signed a petition so far in less than a week? Where is the council car parking strategy to justify these increases? And why increase charges that will mean East Devon coastal towns having the highest car parking charges of any coastal town in the southwest? That is why I'm asking councillors not to accept this recommendation. I ask them to consider having a full car park strategy first, including a consultation, having a full legal equality and diversity review,
30 seconds
on the value
remaining.
of shopping facilities for local residents and visitors, and ask the question, does a car parking profit of £2.5 million justify this level of increases? Councillors, please stand up for residents, businesses and visitors. They contribute so much to our wonderful towns. Mr. Chairman and councillors, I close and ask all members to examine their conscience and vote what is in the best interest of local residents and safeguarding our local business. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. I've got Mrs. Sally Maynard next, please. Hopefully I've pronounced that correctly.
That's correct. Good evening. My name is Sally Maynard, Vice Chair of Sidmouth Chamber of Commerce. As you can imagine, the Chamber and the many businesses that it represents are very concerned at the proposal to double the car park charges in our seaside town centres. The Chamber, along with Mr Goodman's petitions, have now reached over 1,800 signatures. The Democratic Services Manager has been informed, and we, the Chamber, will present these to the Monitoring Officer to a date to be arranged. Members of the Chamber spent the weekend in town collecting signatures, talking to its members and the public, and it's clear to see these proposed increases are unwelcome. Research shows that EDDC car parks will be more expensive than those in the other nearby coastal resorts, cities and towns. Many car parks have a sliding scale. I can park in the following car parks for 2 hours: Plymouth City Centre for £2.40, Tor Bay for £2.50, Lyme Regis for £1.60, Exeter for £2.30. Whereas if I visited Sidmouth to shop, it will cost £4 for 2 hours under the proposed new changes. London Inn car park in Exmouth will cost £1.50 per hour, which is cheaper than a resident wanting to park in the Sidmouth Town Centre car park. Like EDDC, our wonderful local businesses have had an extremely challenging time over the last 2 years, and many now have bounced back loans to pay back over the next 5 years, but they are not in a position to double their prices of the goods in which they sell. EDDC are actively encouraging visitors and residents with their East Devonley marketing campaign to shop local, but then on the other hand, penalising them with high parking charges. It is obvious that this will significantly impact trade in our towns, which are struggling to recover from COVID and which are under long-term pressures from the internet and out-of-town competition. We feel that the proposals have not been thought through and not allowed consultation. There has been no impact assessment, little concerns for the economic health of our communities and the business they support. It looks like a panic measure, lack of evidence, lack of consultation, lack of proper debate and discussion. We urge a more positive, constructive and collaborative attitude to the delivery of the local economic recovery. We should be working together rather than using a top-down approach.
30 seconds remaining.
We believe a 20% increase to a £1.20 per hour in the main car park is reasonable and acceptable, a sensible compromise. It would be much better to go forward on that basis and see what the effects are rather than risking everything by gambling on doubling the charges. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Maynard. And final speaker on the car parking and budget element this evening, I've got Mr. Ian Barton. Ian.
It's Ian Barlow, but anyway, it's a small point. I'm chair of Sidmouth Town Council. We haven't had an opportunity at the Town Council to discuss this, so I am well, I'm speaking on behalf of the town, I suppose, because I've had so many phone calls from members of the public and also traders in the town concerned that Sidmouth's main town centre car park, and although you're saying it's a tourist car park, and I'm not doubting that some tourists use it, this is mainly the one used by local people going to stop in the shops to go down for lunch or something like that and enable our traders to make a living. They've all had a hard time, as you've heard, and I totally agree with everything that's been said previously. I'd just like to say that you keep blaming the previous people for not raising charges, and I sympathise with your problem of lack of money. But if you had raised your car park charges over the last 10 years by inflation, that would only mean they went to £1.30. So putting them up to £2 in Sidmouth is just ridiculous. You've already been told that if I went to Weymouth or Lyme Regis or all of the other councils or the other towns that I feel are my competition, then I'm being charged between £1 and £1.40. And it might be a small point to some people, but it still adds up to an awful lot of money when you go down there and think you're going to be charged £4, as you've been said, to go to lunch before you even start buying the lunch. I just feel that you are gambling, and I was always taught, so lesson I was always taught by my father, don't gamble what you can't afford to lose. We have a vibrant town that we want to keep vibrant. It's had struggle after struggle for the last 2 years, and we're hoping that this year will be some sort of normality. And now we're putting the charges up and having a gamble that you might make some more money. Your own officers have warned you that at the end of the day, you may not get as much money. You may make less money, they said. So because no research has been done on this at all. They've looked into the £1.50 charges and said that, yes, they've done some research on that, but £2, they just don't know. It's also, your own officers have said, possibly illegal to raise the money to just spend on other things. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to use car park charges to manage your car parks. And you know, the car parks are full, we know they're full, but just putting the prices up is not going to help the town. It's not going to help you. And I just think it's a very, very bad decision and rushed. We've had no consultation whatsoever on this. So although I'm sympathetic with the problems you have, I do think that you are
30 seconds remaining.
You are risking an awful lot for well, possibly a gain, but you just do not know that. And certainly on previous experience, you will not gain from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. My apologies for getting your name wrong at the beginning. I know you well enough to not make that mistake, and that's my fault. My apologies. First, in relation to the first three speakers, I'd like to thank you for your comments. I'm sure members will bear them in mind when debating agenda item 9 on the council budget 22-23. Could I now ask Mrs. Beverly Raw to speak to us, please?
Hello, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak again. I have 3 reasons why my father died on the Newton-Poppleford crossing and 3 solutions that could possibly have saved him. Reason 1, my father was not quick enough to traverse the crossing and the lights turned to green on him. Reason 2, neither the driver nor the senior investigative officer from the police saw Dad at the time and at the time of the police reconstruction under the same conditions. Reason 3, hit at 25 miles an hour, as was explained previously. My father stood no chance at all. His injuries were very graphic and he died on the 3rd day. Solution 1, a Belisha Beacon crossing, as at Stoford Rise, does not come with traffic lights. In line with new hierarchy, the pedestrians can walk across a crossing with more settled sense of security. Speed is not of the essence. Solution 2, I wanted to see for myself the lighting on the Waitrose Stoford Rise crossing is by far superior to Newton-Poppleford crossing lighting. I too would struggle, and did, to see a pedestrian in the dark. I can see how the driver missed Dad there. The zebra was highlighted, Newton-Poppleford is not. Solution 3, a flashing beacon is not ambiguous. It means a crossing. The onus is on drivers to slow to allow persons to cross. A green light, as in this accident for the driver, can afford a dangerous false sense of security. A 20-mile-an-hour limits are not innovation. They do exist. The new highway code places a pedestrian as requiring the highest care in road safety. Signs of a 20-mile-an-hour zone make drivers slow down. They will see a pedestrian crossing day or night. I failed to see, under these new highway code rules, why Newton-Poppleford can't join other places and save these avoidable tragedies in future. I do understand the legal cost to implement these in your budget, but how much is a life worth in monetary terms to you? Please do consider this carefully when making decisions. The former speaker said, don't gamble with what you can't afford to lose, and you really can't afford to gamble with lives in future. Thank you.
Thank you for coming to speak to us this evening, Mrs. Raw. Firstly, would you please accept my sympathies on the sad loss of your father? I'm not personally familiar with the crossing in Newton-Poppleford or the incident. I have, however, spoken to my vice chair and your ward member, Councillor Val Ranger, and asked her to respond. I hope you find this helpful. Councillor Ranger, Val.
Thank you. Yes, I hope people could hear Mrs. Raw. It was coming through a little muffled on my microphone. The reason that Mrs. Raw has come to this meeting, just a very brief background. Her father was tragically killed on a crossing in Newton-Poppleford in December 2020. People that were witnessed the scene could see that he did not have enough time to get across the road. And so when the traffic lights changed and traffic proceeded, didn't see him. And regretfully, he was knocked down and killed. The reason that this is so shocking, when it was clear that the gentleman didn't have enough time to get across the road, parish council wrote to DCC, who are the responsible body, to say, could the crossing time be extended? And in my naivety, I imagined a man with a screwdriver or similar would go to the crossing within the next days or weeks and adjust the timing. And yet, it took until Monday, the 14th of February, for this to come to DCC's Hattock meeting, at which the recommendation from the assistant coroner was that DCC should consider adjusting the crossings. That meeting, I have put in a complaint about conduct of that meeting, so I won't get into too much detail, but suffice to say, I put forward some recommendations at that meeting. To strengthen that recommendation, I was told I was ineligible to do so. I voted at that meeting. I was told I was ineligible to vote. East Devon District ward councillors were ineligible to vote at that meeting. That was incorrect. So there were a number of matters about that meeting. I have had an initial response where my complaint was kind of rather poo-pooed. They said, for example, that even if my vote had been counted, it would still have been lost, but I had spoken to at least one other member who would have supported me, an East Devon District councillor, but he had been told that he couldn't vote. So this message is for all East Devon District Council members to be aware that if you are a member of Hattock, you are a voting member. And anyway, that complaint has yet to be fulfilled. But just to finish, what has this got to do with East Devon District Council? So in Newton Poppleford, there have been 2 deaths since 2016 and 1 life-changing injury, and 60 injuries since the year 2000. So when we're looking at planning and highways, you know, we need to be really careful that we consider the safety of our residents as part of that. So once again, I'll pass my condolences to Mrs. Raw, but I really do want all East Devon District Council members to be aware of their rights when they are members on the Hattock Committee, either now or going forward into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ranger, and thank you, Mrs. Raw. Public speakers. Sorry, and what I ought to perhaps mention is, of course, I think it is primarily a Devon County Council matter, and maybe Councillor Bailey, who's might pick up on that as well in the future and assist you. Public speakers now be returned to our virtual waiting room, and you're welcome to view the meeting live on the Council's YouTube page from there. Thank you very much. Agenda item 2 is minutes of the previous council meeting. Members, if you have any comments on the minutes of the council meeting on the 8th of December, could you please raise your electronic hand? I'm not seeing any hands, so could I ask members please to vote in the normal manner in favour of receiving and noting these minutes. Green ticks for yes, for red cross against, and any abstentions through your normal hand.
Chair, the vote is underway. It's still going up. I have 48 votes in favour.
Thank you very much, Sue. I can confirm the minutes are received and noted. Agenda item 3 are apologies. I've so far had apologies from Councillor Bickley, Councillor Blakey, Councillor Bloxham, Councillor Davey, Councillor Hall, who I think is actually here. Well, I'm very pleased to see him here. And that's it. Do I have any further apologies, please?
No, Chair, I haven't received any. Councillor Davey is also here, and Councillor Johns is present, but her name wasn't called out. My mistake. Apologies, but I believe she's here as well. Sorry.
Apart from that, we were right there.
Chair, if I may, Councillor Jackson has sent her apologies too, if I may.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Moving on from there to agenda item 4, our declarations of interest. I think rather than go through this now, if anybody wants to make a declaration at any point in the meeting, and then we'll pick it up then. I notice, however, Councillor Twiss.
Yeah, thank you very much. As the DCC portfolio holder for finance, due to potential conflicts of interest between EDDC and DCC, I'm declaring a disclosable pecuniary interest at item 9, and we'll leave the meeting at that point when we reach that item. Thank you.
Thank you much for that, Councillor Twiss. Councillor Hughes, Stuart.
Yeah, exactly the same, Chair, as the County Council's Cabinet Member for Highway Management, and due to those potential conflicts of interest between the district and county, once again declaring a disclosable pecuniary interest at item 9 and leave the meeting at that stage.
That's lovely. Thanks for that, Stuart. Councillor Bonetta, Jake.
Thank you, Chair. Just my standing personal interest as a Honiston Town Councillor on all relevant items in the agenda. Thank you.
Oh, we've got a rush now. Councillor Bailey, Jess.
Thank you. I'd like to declare a personal interest as a county councillor. I don't think I need to declare a disclosable pecuniary interest in relation to item 9 because I'm not on the cabinet. But so I think I should just be declaring a personal interest at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Chubb, Ian.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as a Devon County Councillor, I'll declare a personal interest because Devon County deal with highways and parking as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ian. Councillor Hall, Ian.
Thank you, Chairman. I am a Devon County Councillor, and I'm looking at this as being a personal interest. Obviously, highways and parking is part of Devon County as well. But I also chair, I'm Vice Chair of HATOC. I was not present at the meeting in question the public speaker was referring to, but does have my sincere condolences. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ian. Councillor Hartnell, Marcus.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to declare an interest as a county councillor and also as a business owner in Seaton, which might be impacted by car parking charges. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Marcus. Councillor Johns, Vicky.
Thank you. Just a personal interest, the same as Councillor Bonetta, in the fact that I'm an Ottery Town Councillor as well, with parking, etc. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you for that. If there are any more declarations to be made at any point in the meeting, if you please let us know it then.
Chair, sorry to interrupt. Could I just check Councillor Hartnell? Was that a personal interest?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Anita. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Anita. And item 5 next, matters of urgency. I've got 2 matters of urgency to be dealt with this evening, which are under items 10Q and 11. Agenda item 6, announcements from the chair and or leader. As I mentioned earlier, our full council this evening will be completed on a consultative basis as per our current practice. However, setting our annual budget and the resolution of council tax, it's a legal requirement we meet in person and formally make those decisions through a recorded vote. We'll therefore be holding a further extraordinary meeting on Wednesday evening at the Ocean Suite in Exmouth to decide that matter only. This meeting will be held under COVID precautions as advised to members by our Democratic Services team. The budget report is included this evening as agenda item 9 to give the opportunity for all members to take a full part in debate this evening. We will conclude that agenda item with an indicative vote as for a recommendation to attendees at Wednesday evening's meeting. Further to that, I'd like to update our colleagues on the project that we have for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations, and also obviously at the same time pass our best wishes to Her Majesty for a swift recovery. I'd like to thank from the member side, Councillor Desarum, Councillor Johns, Councillor Bloxham and Councillor Bickley particularly, who've joined our small team working with an excellent group of officers to deliver these trees. What we're actually doing, as you know, is we're offering to gift one of the 70 oak trees to each of our parish and town council areas to be installed in a suitable place in their village or town by our own street scene teams, who will also behind the watering equipment and a plaque, a commemorative plaque. I just wanted to update members quickly that we've now had responses from 47 of the 69 parishes, of which 46 have been positive with a wish to accept our gift. I'm very pleased about that, and I'll be contacting members over the next couple of days to advise them of those that are outstanding that we haven't heard from yet. I would appreciate your getting involved if it's one of yours, to actually just to hopefully bring that matter to a conclusion. In terms of timescale, we now know that trees are due to arrive on the 28th of February, and we'll be starting planting across the district from the 7th of March onwards. Thank you very much for that. And again, I think I know it's the risk of repeating this. I must just welcome Councillor Hall back to council. Councillor Hall unfortunately contracted COVID in the middle of last year and has had a pretty uncomfortable time. As my counterpart, Devon County Council member crossing the wild East End, I must admit he's been missed. So anyway, good to see this smiling face back again, and pleased to see you, Ian.
Thank you all, and thank you, Chairman, and it's very good to see all of you. It's been a long drawn out affair, but I tell you, I am one of the lucky ones, and my thoughts go with all the families of those who have passed away. This is a second chance, and hopefully we can move together forward. Take care.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Ian. I'm not aware of any announcements from the leader. Is the leader wishing to make any announcements at this stage?
Enough said, Chair. Thank you for asking, though. Thank you very much.
No problem. Next on to agenda item 7, which is confidential and exempt items. No items have been recommended by officers to be dealt with as confidential or exempt. So we'll move straight on to the normally extensive section that somehow seems to have not really stimulated the imagination this time. Not the normal 40 questions, but just 3. All have been responded to in writing and published prior to the meeting. Could I ask each of the 3 question raisers whether they have any supplementaries, please? Councillor Desarum.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair. Yes, please, I have a supplementary. I just want to say to Councillors Ronan and Councillor Sukwe, just to quickly say that, yes, I did attend the Queen's Drive Zoom meeting last week, and I'm pleased to see that Jerry Mills is in post, and I wish him well in this task ahead. And I now ask my supplementary, which is what statistical research or scoping exercise was undertaken by EDC to support the recommendation in the first place that this area should be grassed over? As you go on to mention in your reply, some income would have been lost on high street parking, but this figure is not known. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you. Would you like to respond, Jack?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Desarum, for the question and your supplementary. As the reply said, anybody that originally was perhaps using that temporary car park wouldn't have just left the town. They would have used alternative parking anyway. So that's why it's impossible to actually establish exactly what the lost income would have been from that temporary car park. But I'm sure you'll agree that visitors that perhaps had used that in the past would find alternative car parking in an EDC car park very close to that area, or potentially, which wouldn't be coming to EDC, I agree, using the on-street parking facility.
Thank you for that, Councillor Rowland. Councillor Arnott, is that a wayward hand or is that a real one?
It's a real one, Chair. I hope just with a helpful point of information for Councillor Desarum. What we keep forgetting is that it isn't a car park. It never was a car park. It had a temporary planning application granted to become a car park. It isn't now a car park. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Bailey, Jess.
Hello. Yes, sorry, I couldn't get my hand up quite quickly enough, Chair, when after Mrs. Raw spoke, and I just wanted to also express my sincere condolences for her loss, and that I'm very concerned about what is happening on the roads in East Devon. So I just want to say that first. And then moving on to my question, I do have a supplementary, please, for the leader. Does the leader share my view that whilst I'm pleased that South West Water will be attending our meeting, I do not feel that 1 hour is in any way sufficient for the councillors who are very concerned about the issue of sewage discharges to ask questions and have those answers and to debate and discuss the issue. And I believe that there'll be many residents who are also equally concerned who may like to ask questions. So if the leader does share my view that an hour is an insufficient length of time on this very crucial matter, could he be kind enough to invite South West Water to attend for a little longer, quite a lot longer, in fact? Thank you. Councillor
Arnott.
Thank you, Chair, very much. Yes, thank you, Councillor Bailey. I'm very happy to, well, the short answer is yes, I agree. And yes, I'm very happy to make contact with our officers tomorrow to see if we can get the meeting for rather longer. There is no doubt that this has been an incredibly serious matter for years, but also in the last year in particular. And I think as we move forward for our local plan processes as well, we need to try and make sure that there is constant engagement with South West Water to just make absolutely sure that various pumping stations and channels in rivers and so forth are in condition to take what might be new, quite substantial new population. So yes, thank you, Councillor Bailey, for the supplementary.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Miller, do you have a supplementary?
No, Chair, thank you.
I think I should make a record of that one, but thank you for your original question anyway, Councillor Miller. Agenda item 9, a report on the Council Tax Resolution 2022-23. Excuse me. Before I invite Simon to address this report, I understand we've received requests to call minutes of Cabinet from 2nd of February, minute 160, Revenue and Capital Budgets 22-23, from Councillors Colin Brown and Bruce Sarum and Helen Parr. I don't believe it would be appropriate to call a minute in item 10, which related to a matter that had just been debated in item 9. I'll therefore ask Councillor Brown, Sarum and Parr in turn at this point to highlight their reasons to call in the Cabinet minute 160 from the 2nd of Feb, and so that their views can be considered within item 9 itself. I hope that makes sense and it's clear. Firstly, Councillor Brown, Colin.
Thank you, Chair. I hope you don't mind me not turning my video on, but my internet at present has a tendency to go down. You know, I've gone from 900 megs down to less than 30. That teaches me to move. Right. I would like to put a recommendation to full council, a proposal, in fact, that we adopt a car parking fee of £1.20 for all car parks in East Devon, as proposed by the Parking TAF and Councillor Marcus Hartnell at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 12th of January 2022. At the meeting, Andrew Ennis, the Service Lead for Environmental Health and Car Parks, reminded members that they could not simply raise revenue to spend on other areas that was not lawful, and that was not lawful under the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984. The Act requires councils to reduce congestion and improve road and pedestrian safety. The council could only use the revenue generated to manage and maintain car parks to fulfil the £300,000 shortfall in that department. £1.20 would more than adequately cover the amount, and I'm led to understand that this would raise, with parking users at its present level, £540,000. More intelligent management strategy would be to manage the car parks better. An example would be in all car parks to have tickets that display car registration numbers. Today, the Service Lead for Environmental Health and Car Parks sent a contrary email in which he stated to members that they should be clear. They are not proposing to increase and raise revenue for other purposes. So to be clear, it is illegal just to raise car parking to increase revenue to spending elsewhere and to balance the books. However, if members do approve the proposed tariff changes, then the council may lawfully use the extra revenue that is generated for other purposes. On Friday of last week, we all received an email from our monitoring officer that reaffirms the service lead's advice and reminds all members that the council should not simply raise car parking to raise revenue for other areas. Furthermore, where is the budget equities impact statement? How on earth can councillors vote on a budget that will impact on those in our community when the necessary statement is missing? Are we trying to make our communities cash cows? Our monitoring officer also said to us by email that means charging should be set at a level that encourages the use of car parks for traffic management purposes. But the council may also take into account other matters they consider relevant. That would include the impact on local businesses, town centres, and the extent to which a charge in changes would affect the overall financial receipt to the council. The key is any increase in charges cannot predominantly be or expressed to be for the purposes of income generation. The last time there was an increase in parking charges from 85p to £1, it took 4 years for the revenue to reach the level it had been previously before the rise. We are supposed to be underpinning the recovery of the high streets and to give businesses the opportunity to flourish. The proposal for an exorbitant increase, being 100% in places, does little to encourage that. We leave ourselves open for any member of the public who can show this is for revenue raising to take it to the judicial review. And I would like to thank the Chair for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening. And if we go to a vote, can we have a recorded vote, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. What I'm so we don't get too confused on this one here, I'm going to listen first or hear from first for the three who want to call the minute, at which point I'm going to actually ask Councillor Simon Davey to introduce the report, and then we'll debate it after that. But I do know that Councillor Brown's indicated he wants to, I guess, post an amendment, and I'll ask him once Simon Davies presented the report, whether he wants to confirm that. But Councillor Desarum, would you like to speak at this point, please?
Yeah, I'll be very brief, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair. I note that members have already had the opportunity to hear from Councillor Brown and will be aware that the budget proposals you see before you tonight are a very blunt and crude way of attempting to balance the budget, specifically regarding car parking charges. And I'm aware that the issue before us in terms of car parking is to look at a more intelligent management strategy, as the service lead has said, in order to review our car parking tariffs to enable us to better fund and manage the day-to-day running. I must also thank the service lead for his helpful email earlier today, in which he acknowledged that some of the car parking proposals would be brave initially. However, I should point out that research suggests that local authorities may only use the surplus that results as a byproduct of setting the level of charge that is necessary for relieving or preventing congestion of traffic. I don't think that this budget, from what I've read, has addressed any measures to relieve or prevent traffic congestion. Exmouth members have already expressed their concerns about the impact of the £2 increase in charges in certain car parks, as commented on already by Councillor Gazard, who is also our mayor. And I maintain that it is not justified that different charges can be made across East Devon. As members will be aware, a petition has already started, for example, in Sidmouth about this issue. I believe there is widespread concern that these measures are not justified as we're coming out of COVID and need to offer as much assistance as we can to the high streets. The report suggests that EDC have assumed that our customers will continue to use our car parks in the same way and to park for the same periods of time. But as the service lead quite rightly points out in today's email, some of these proposals are brave because the EDC cannot predict individual behaviour. However, that said, I would support the Conservative viewpoint, as mentioned, that we would have the £1.20 across the board as proposed by Councillor Hartnell. Our aim in Council to settle this budget must not be to deter shoppers, as we recognise that they are the lifeblood of the high street. Therefore, as has been touched on by Councillor Brown, I cannot support this budget as it stands, as it's not in the best interest of our residents, who we are proud to represent and serve. We've also heard from members of the public, specifically Mike Goodman, who mentioned the 100% rise with the 8 car parks, as he started and mentioned. We've also heard concerns from the Vice Chairman of the Sidmouth, the Chamber of Commerce, and we've also heard from Ian Barlow from the Sidmouth Town Council that he believes that there has been inadequate consultation. So I would like to say that we cannot go ahead tonight because we haven't even satisfied basic consultation procedures, because the TAF hasn't, as we said, as it's been said earlier in March, come to a full report. And I think clearly what we've heard today is very disturbing, and that's why I put forward these views. And thank you very much indeed for listening, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor De Sarum. Councillor Parr, have you anything additional to add to that, Helen, or is it?
Yes, I have. I just want to be
Thank
clear
you.
that. Sorry, I just want to be clear that Councillor De Sarum was seconding that motion from Councillor Brown, and to say that I actually asked Andrew Ennis for a clarification because he emailed us all today, and I asked him about his paragraph, finally, with these management reasons for the increase in line, members should be clear that we are not proposing an increase in order to raise revenue for other purposes. I'm not at all clear that that's what we're doing. And I haven't seen any evidence that we are going to use this money for reducing congestion or managing availability of spaces, improving road safety. Where have we seen that? I read the latest rant in the Midweek Herald by our leader, in which he clearly says that the rises are because our parking is too cheap. It hasn't been raised for 12 years. There's absolutely nothing coming out from the administration that this is going to help motorists. I don't think they should just be exploited and made to pay higher charges like this. It will do absolutely nothing to support our high streets. How are we encouraging people not to shop on the internet? We're closing the loos and putting up parking. I think this is completely against the interests of the businesses, local shops, and our residents. I simply can't support this, I'm afraid, and I agree with what the 2 previous speakers said, and it was very well put by people from Sidmouth who spoke in the public speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parr. I would point out that was just taking your reasons primarily as to why you were wanting to call the minutes in the first place, but it's hopefully we got that round and that clear. What I think it's important to do, but I would just add one comment at this point, that we mustn't forget that it is a legal requirement that this council sets a balanced budget. That means effectively where the cash coming in during the next year broadly matches the cash going out. So we need to bear that in mind in terms of how this debate goes from here on in.
Just on that, can I just make a point of order just on that point there that you've just made? The proposal already put forward, it's under 12.13 of the Constitution, just for your own benefit.
I was going to ask.
Personal explanation is, with regards to the proposal that's just been put forward, there isn't any anything to say what are we going to drop from the budget? What services are we going to cut to allow this change to the £1.20? And that's something that needs to be proposed tonight with the proposal.
I think that's going to come forward. But what I would actually rather like to do is get Simon Davey to actually introduce the report as the strategic lead of finance, please. Simon, can I hand that ball over to you now, please?
Thank you, Chair. So on your agenda, council agenda, is the council tax resolution for 22-23. This formally adopts this council's budget and sets the council tax for this authority and that of other preceptors in East Devon So it's quite a detailed report with lots of calculations within it. The main preceptors being Devon County Council, Police, Fire, and the town and parish councils. All the other precepting authorities have now met and confirmed their budget and council tax, and these are the numbers that are detailed in your papers. The council's budget is set in accordance with the Cabinet's recommendation on the 2nd of February. This followed the budget process of, and just to remind members, Cabinet considered and adopted a draft budget on the 5th of January, all aspects of which were then debated along with service plans by the Overview and Scrutiny Committees and the Housing Review Board. Cabinet then considered on the 2nd of February the recommendations from those committees to make their final budget proposals, which are in line with those recommendations in the council tax resolution. As stated in the report, as your Chief Finance Officer, I'm legally required to report to the authority on the robustness of the 22-23 budget and the adequacy of the proposed financial reserves. The budget recommended by Cabinet is balanced, with expenditure matched by available income, with appropriate prudence built into the budget and the reserves being maintained at adequate levels. The council tax for this council is being set at £156.78 a year, which is within the thresholds set by government. There is a legal requirement, as has been mentioned, for the council to set a balanced budget and associated council tax. The process for council tax billing starts the day after council on Wednesday in order to meet necessary deadlines. Finally, to remind members, the obligation to set a balanced budget is shared equally by each member. That's all I wanted to do in terms of introducing the council tax resolution and just explaining the overall implications and the calculations contained. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Simon. I think what I'd like to do is, bearing in mind there was an amendment proposed within the earlier session with the people who wanted to call the minute. I haven't actually got a precise wording of exactly what that recommendation was, that amendment was. Are you able to provide that for us, Councillor Brown, please? In simple terms, exactly what your proposal is?
This council adopts the recommendation put forward by the parking TEF of £1.20 for car parks in East Devon.
Is that it?
Basically, yes.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just as long as I'm clear. And that was seconded by Councillor Desarum, yeah?
Yes, Chair, if you wish to speak. Yes, I second it.
But it needs a second formally for us to go forward and debate it. So what we're actually talking about now is not the whole of the budget. What we're going to discuss is actually the specific proposal and to make that amendment as suggested.
Chair, can I a point of order, please? Sorry to interrupt.
What paragraph is it in the Constitution, please, Councillor Allen?
It's to seek clarification of what the mover has just said, because I think I just want to be clear. Is the mover proposing that every car park in East Devon is £1.20? Does that include the free one in Sidbury?
Well, my reading of it was exactly that it did, but this is what we need to do.
Sorry if I can interrupt, Chair. It includes all the car parks that we pay £1 for. The recommendation was from the TEF was that they increased to £1.20. That in itself raises £540,000.
Right. Okay. Then, so Simon, would you like to comment on this change? I mean, are you able to comment as to whether this is sustainable within a balanced budget? A change like that, or what the implications of it would be? I appreciate you being rather dropped on it, but in fairness, I hadn't seen that proposal either until it was made.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not certain of the exact income level that it will generate, but it's certainly, if it is the 500 level, then there's going to have to be an amendment to the expenditure side of the budget to bring it into a balanced position.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I think that's extremely helpful. What I'm asking for now, please, are speakers specifically on the amendment, not on the budget itself. And I've got Councillor Young. Jeff, first, please.
Thank you. I don't want to speak on the amendment. I want to speak on the main budget. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Miller, speaking on the amendment, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to speak against the amendment, given that I proposed the £2 charge. Naturally, I would. The reason I'm against it is because the Conservative group have claimed through their leader tonight that that what I proposed was effectively illegal, which is not true. I checked my motion with the service lead Andrew Ennis, and during our conversation, it became clear that actually the £1.20 across the board would actually, that would be challenged in a judicial review, because the whole point about setting differential charges in popular tourist hotspots is about easing congestion. It is about easing congestion. I've got a column in the Archant newspapers next week, which clearly states that this is about easing congestion. We have had residents contact us, not as many as I expected, I must admit. I have gone back to the service lead, Andrew Ennis, for advice, and he has consistently advised me that the proposal I made is totally legal. And when I mentioned this amendment, which I was expecting tonight, he advised me that that would be, in his view, more, in his view, it would be more open to challenge. I don't agree with setting the same price everywhere. It sort of reminds me of the poll tax, basically. I think it makes absolute sense to charge more in busy car parks, because it encourages visitors, remember, and it encourages visitors to park in the less busy car parks. And one thing that the three speakers from the Conservative group forgot in proposing the amendment is that we have the cheapest residence permit, I believe, in the entire Southwest, £10 a month. That is incredibly cheap. That's £2.50 or so a week. And from my perspective, I do not think this is going to have an effect on businesses. Otherwise, I would not be making this proposal. And absolutely, to respond to Councillor Parr's point, this is about easing congestion, but we also have to set a balanced budget. That's when we were presented with the savage level of cuts that we had to make to our services in the budget, that was what we needed to do. We needed to come up with a plan. And these proposed charges that I proposed are still below our neighbouring authority, Exeter, and at the same level as Timbridge and Mid Devon. Thank you very much, Chair. I'll be voting against the amendment on Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ledger. Dan, on the amendment, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. Yeah, just on the amendment, I need to seek further clarity from the proposer. What services are they proposing to cut? We've already heard from the service lead for car parks previously that environmental health is close to collapse. It's that short-staffed, and this was one of the areas that previously was said that it was non-affordable. So are we going to allow that service now to collapse? I really can't understand it. I go to what's happened previously, and I believe that the original motion from overview and scrutiny was supported by Councillor Desarum, was seconded by a Conservative member, and was voted on unanimously. Oh, sorry, bar one was voted through by the Conservative group. I can't understand why it's now come to council, and it seems like there's a lot of members that are changing their minds. It doesn't make sense. We understand what's happening to our services at the moment. We understand that we are short-staffed, that we are close to collapse in certain areas, and we need to do something about it. I can't vote for an amendment that actually takes away even more services and cuts them. We're at a standing start right now, and we're proposing to take further away. It just doesn't make sense to me. I'll speak further on the budget later, but that's all I've got to say on the amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ledger. Councillor Rowland. Jack, on the amendment, please.
Yeah, I will speak solely on the amendment, Chair. And I'm also seeking clarification just on that point, because I'm far from clear about what's being proposed in terms of the existing 30-minute rate, which would still be enforcing with what we're talking about in what's on the agenda this evening. And also, I'd like clarification about, are they suggesting as well that the 5-month winter rates of £2 all day, which will be retained under the current proposals, is still being retained? And are they also suggesting any changes in terms of what we're talking about in terms of the residence parking permits, where we're introducing a monthly option, which, as Councillor Miller has already mentioned, provides great value and is also designed, really, if we can encourage more residents to be taking up that option, to be using the car parks in town centres, which will also in turn help businesses. So I need much more clarification on the amendment that's being put forward, and as it stands at the moment, I couldn't possibly support it.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. I've got Councillor Key. David, on the amendment, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, it really baffles me as to why these people want to actually kill off the towns, because this is what is going to happen, right? They have no idea. These shop owners have been struggling now for the last 2 years, and they now want to crucify them even more by putting up these charges and people not actually going, because they will just go and buy online, which hundreds and hundreds of people have been doing. I really just cannot understand what these people, the council, are actually thinking of. It baffles me as to where they're wanting to put this money that is going to be made from the car parks. We did see, in actual fact, from one of the officers that it was illegal to actually put them up. So I really just do not know or cannot understand what these people are thinking about. They're just wanting to actually kill the towns like Sidmouth, Exmouth, Honiton and Axminster. And I think they should really be sort of reprimanded for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Key. Councillor Hartnell. Marcus, on the amendment, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of points. Interested to hear Councillor Miller mentioning the issues regarding congestion, and they will be coming out in his column next week in the Archant publications. I just wondered whether it might have been useful to have shared that with the fellow East Devon District councillors, so that we perhaps would have been aware of that at the overview meeting as well. So before sharing it with the press. And regarding councillors changing their minds, which I think Councillor Ledger referred to, surely that's democracy, and we were actually listening to members of the public and businesses this evening that have got legitimate and genuine concerns about their income and actually their livelihoods, to be honest with you, because these people, Sidon's got a thriving retail sector, and I think you know, what we're going to do with this £2 per hour increase is really going to be disastrous. So regarding the amendment to 120, I proposed this at the overview committee, which was based on the papers that were presented to that committee, which at that time the £1.20 per hour was on selected car parks. It wasn't a blanket 120 across all the car parks. So what my proposal was at the overview committee was that everywhere that charged £1 would be increased to £1.20. And that's where the figure that Councillor Brown referred to, I believe, came from with regards to the 500 and, so I did write it down, so 540,000, which was significantly higher than what it would have been if it had been selected car parks. And I believe the report also at overview was looking at taking 323,000 from the general fund balance in order to provide a balanced budget. So my view would be that the combination of the two would still get us pretty much to a balanced budget situation, albeit, you know, there's an element of risk in everything we do. But my view is that we can't put these prices up for car parking charges too soon, too quickly. We need to have much more information at our fingertips to make that decision, which will hopefully come through overview with the car parking strategy. You know, we've had people this evening talk to us about the equality and diversity impact assessment, also talking, you know, generally about concerns around they're only just recovering from COVID. And we could actually be a situation where we see the income that we think we're going to get not materialize. And there's a huge risk in that, because we'll get to the end of the financial year without a balanced budget anyway. So I think we need to make a more sensible approach here. And I support the amendment from Councillor Brown and Councillor DeSarum. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hartnell. I noticed Simon, Mr. Davey, you've put your hand up now. Do you want to speak straight away, or were you booking a slot in the queue?
Will you be bringing that in? Lovely. Well done. What about?
Sorry, Chair. I just wonder if it helps to clarify, if that's okay.
Yeah, sorry, we have somebody with a microphone on. I think that's the problem.
Okay. So the question you asked of me, Chair, I've just been back to look through previous numbers and calculations. So just if it helps, sort of clarification for the meeting, the increase of £1.20 across the board. So this is the implications of the income that's raised on the budget. So the debate on what's right for car parking, members have that debate, but in terms of just giving you the implications of the income on the budget. So the £1.20 across all car parks, the figure of 540,000 was calculated previously. I will remind members that 300,000 of that's already in the base budget, because on the prime car parks, Council have already increased to £1.20 from April this year in a decision they made at last year's Council. So of the 540, 300's already banked in the base budget. So you're left with 240 additional income if all car parks are raised to £1.20. And as was mentioned by Councillor Hartnell, the budget before we started talking about car park increases had a deficit of 323,000. So by increasing the £1.20, you're there or thereabouts in terms of an 83k shortage in a budget. However, there's a need for a reduction of over 730,000 of expenditure that's included in your budget for staffing costs. They'll need to come out, and the 50,000 for your tree strategy would need to come out. So just helping members with that debate.
Thank you, Simon. I think that's very helpful. I'll continue with the speakers on the amendments, but I think that needs to be made absolutely clear. One question I will be asking on you is where we go at the end. We'll say at the end of the amendment. If in the event the amendment is carried, what approach we need to take then with this meeting this evening? Because I question whether actually it's possible to carry on. Councillor Young, Jeff, on the amendment, please.
Yes, it's on the amendment. What I want to discuss is why all the speakers so far have been talking about the hourly rate. The hourly rate is only one part of the whole package of proposals that has resulted from over 2 years of debate at many meetings and officers' recommendations. If you ask people if they want a ratepayers permit for £10 a month, far cheaper than any other authority in the Southwest, and the cheapest winter rate in the Southwest for 5 whole months at £2 a day, and short stay offer of buy 3 hours, get 1 free, and no charges after 6 p.m, and no car park charge for more than 8 hours at a premium car park, I think most people would say yes. We do recognise that we have a problem. We have beaches and town centres using the same car parks, and we have no space in the summer and massive space in the winter. We wanted our package to provide the best for our residents, who, unlike large cities, do not benefit from the super bus service. For that, that's a debate for another day, I'm afraid. We need to provide for our town businesses and to provide for our visitors over a busy and hectic summer period. We have set 3 different rates for towns that are very different in nature and needs, going from £1.20, £1.40, £1.50 and £2. We are retaining the ability to pay at a half-hour rate, and by not charging after 6 p.m, which will entice people to stay around to benefit the town and town's great offers. Also remember that we haven't put up our fees for 12 years, absorbing the hike in VAT at 2.5, introducing the winter rate, and the repairs and maintenance has been kept to an absolute minimum for those last 12 years. Yes, I understand from the speakers today and the many people who have contacted this council regarding the alleged monstrous increase in the hourly charge. Yes, if you look at the price on the headline, on the press headline, it does seem excessive. But if you drill down and look at the whole package, I believe we are proposing a very logical, balanced and fair package. Yes, we could have dropped the winter rate, dropped the additional hourly freebie offer, increased the permit, and gone for a small hourly interval rate spread over more hours. But after looking at many variations, I believe our package is the best for the East Devon. There has been a lot of erroneous and selective examples of we are more expensive than this place in Cornwall or that place in Dorset. Yes, you can find cheaper car parks, but look at Bournemouth, look at Weymouth, look at Newquay, and not only at their initial hourly charge, but look at the whole day rate. We will still be cheaper than most. On what basis can you say that our package of measures is going to damage the high street? Experience in other locations doesn't. Retail shopping is the most liked British pastime. I certainly don't believe that, but a lot of people say that. So I don't go along with shoppers will be driven out of town supermarkets and driven to out of town supermarkets and shop online. We need to continue with our wonderful seaside town offers of eateries, cafes, bars, and a unique mix of wonderful shops. No shed or internet offer will replace wandering around our great towns. I, like the other speakers today, want the best for our towns and our residents. And I really believe that this car park package as a whole is the best for East Devon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Desarum, I'm afraid I'm not going to take you again on the amendment because you did obviously speak at the beginning and I'm only allowing one session.
I was just going to say, Chair, I wasn't an overview. I was just going to quickly say that I wasn't at the overview and speaking meeting. That's all I was wanting to correct.
Okay, right. Point connected, no problem. Thank you for that. Councillor Ingham, Ben, on the amendment, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's very important that we show each other a bit more respect, because Councillor Young was right when he said, you know, we all want the best. And sometimes it's very difficult when you're a councillor and you're tied in with what a council wants to achieve. Sometimes we forget what our people in East Devon, our communities, can afford. And I think it's fair to say that is the main driving force for why the Conservative speakers have said what they have said. And that, I believe it's right that they should be allowed to, if they think it's necessary, change their minds. And Chairman, on changing mind, I think you'll agree, Chair, because it's when you were finance portfolio holder, you put forward a proposition, outrageous figure, an increase of 50p. And you were shouted down, Chairman. You were shouted down for suggesting it. And when I said, well, what about 25p? I was ridiculed as well. And it's by the very same people who say people shouldn't be changing their minds, you know, over 12 months. It's only right that we should change our minds in order to represent our communities to the best of our ability, Chairman. And I think we should, during this debate, not just slag each other off. We've got to listen to each other and understand that we're all trying to do the best for East Devon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I wasn't actually aware there was a lot of insults or slagging off going on so far, to be totally honest, Ben. Certainly seen a lot worse in the past. Anyway, Councillor Skinner. Philip.
It's just a quick in, thank you. And it was just I don't know if you would allow whether this is the place or not, but for Councillor Miller said something that's quite poignant, and I do try to listen and respect other people's views, even if it's not the ones that I necessarily share myself. But he did say that the increased charges, and I just a bit of clarification, because I think it's quite important for the debate, Chair, was talking about if the car prices go up, or the car parking prices increase, then, and in his view, it helps the congestion or traffic congestion. And I just want some clarification. Did he mean by that if they go up, we won't have any congestion because people won't go in there because they find that the prices are too high? I just couldn't understand. I couldn't get the methodology behind him saying what he was saying. And I think it's quite important because it will come later in the debate, whether that's for lay, Chair, or whether you want me to bring it up again later, entirely up to you. But if there was some clarification just quickly, it would just put my mind at rest as what the methodology was behind his thinking. That was all. Thank you.
Can I come back, Chair?
I'd rather you did
clarify quickly. I think it's
5 seconds.
There's a simple logic to state that if you increase charges in very busy car parks, residents and visitors will park in the less busy car parks, which have lower prices. That's how it eases congestion, because you don't get, cars driving around trying to find a space in a particular car park. It's simple logic and it works across the country.
Right. Thank you for that, Councillor Miller, and hopefully that clarifies for Councillor Skinner. Councillor Lawrence. Richard, on the amendment, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm a little bit confused here. I know I'm a new boy and I've got a lot to learn, but I see a lot of opposing information coming here. 1 minute we're being told that we're not allowed to increase charges just to balance the books, and then we seem to be being told that we need this money to balance the books. And I don't understand where this is coming from, because as far as I'm concerned, I was told that it was illegal just to raise money just for car parking to balance the council books. And now we're being told that if we don't raise the car parking, we've got to lose some other services or reduce our numbers of staff or whatever. Well, it was never supposed to raise money for staff members, was it? I mean, perhaps I'm wrong, but anyway, I'll leave that to others who know better than me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Richard. Councillor Ragg. Eileen, on the amendment, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I've been a councillor, as you know, for a very long time, 26 years this year, on all three councils, at one time on all three, and as Mayor of Exmouth. So I'm reasonably well known, I think, and quite approachable. I've not had one email, not one phone call about these proposed increases. Now, I can only, with my sort of suspicious mind, think that, are there elections in the offing? And yes, there are next year, aren't there? What a coincidence. So I think this is a lot of hype, a lot of hysteria. And I'm sorry to use that word because, I respect my fellow councillors right across the board. Don't necessarily agree with them all, as Councillor Skinner has alluded to. But I will quote one former head of finance, a well-respected officer at East Devon District Council, who said free car parks are not free. They come at a cost to the council taxpayer, and there are maintenance costs. We have to maintain the surfaces, the barriers, the machines, all of that. So I really do think that this has been blown out of all proportion. All right, some things might be looked at again, maybe in Sidmouth, where, it might be thought that they've been unfairly treated. but in the main, as has been said, East Devon residents have one of the lowest residential permits, £120 a year. I believe in Surrey, it's nigh on £1,000 a year. So I think we've got to get things into proportion, get it back in the box, and just look at it coldly in that light. I think that things are getting blown out of all proportion here. Costs are going up. Attention hasn't been given to this for about a good 10 years, probably more, 12 years. And it needs to be reviewed. We've got to be realistic. And motorists, you know, we know where they're facing. We're all facing higher fuel costs. But there again, working from home, that reduces that. There are all sorts of things that COVID has brought into play, like with internet shopping. So I think we need to, and a lot of work has been done on this. I know it has over the last 2 years. So I think we've got to get a sense of proportion. And the fact that I've not had not one inquiry, not one complaint, all I've seen is what's on social media, and I believe it's politically motivated. That's all I'll say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Eileen. Councillor Loudon. John, on the amendment, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Constitution 12.10, that the question now be put.
Sorry, my apologies. I can't remember. Do I need a seconder for that or not, Henry?
He's missing.
Oh, sorry.
You can do, and you can do it that way, but Chair, very much it's for you to decide whether you think the matter has been adequately debated, and whether you think it is appropriate to put the question, or whether there are still others who need to speak.
Okay, well, I think on that context, then, on the amendment, I'd quite like to hear those that had indicated to speak at this point, but I think it's perfectly sensible not to take any beyond that. I've noticed that
Chair,
Mark would like to. Mark's got his hand up. Mark.
Yeah, it's just to add to what. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, it's just to add to what Anita has just mentioned, that I think as part of this debate on the amendments, members do need to be clear through the process of the debate on the amendment the consequences of accepting the amendment, and they were touched on by Mr. Davey. But I would assume that the proposer and the seconder of the amendment are taking on board the implications that Simon Davey has spelt out, which are the reductions to the budget as a consequence of the amendment. So I think that's why further debate is appropriate. You know, so I'm agreeing with you in that sense, because we need to make sure everyone is clear on that point.
You're absolutely right. And in fact, at the end of these speakers that are remaining, I would actually like Simon to reiterate the details, not just in the direct implications of a balanced budget, but also the risk at this time in the process and the additional costs it potentially puts on our operation. Because clearly there are issues in relation to the fact that this has come forward at a very late stage in the process. So as I say, I've got 4 more speakers indicated. I'd like to hear them first, please. Councillor Gazzard. Steve. On the
Hello.
Can we not hear you, Steve? I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, Steve.
Oh, thank you. Everybody just froze. Thank you, Chair. Firstly, can I just, as I did at the overview and scrutiny in that cabinet meeting, just declare that my comments that were raised earlier by Councillor Desarum, I wasn't speaking as the Mayor of Exmouth, I was speaking as an elected East Devon District Councillor. And to be consistent, I've raised my concern all along about the increase in car parking charges up to £2 across parts of the district. And I still maintain that I am really concerned about that. It is unfortunate that this amendment that's come tonight, because obviously there might have been another amendment that might have been put in. But I personally, and I respect everybody on this council, whatever party they belong to. I have been approached in my hometown by residents, shopkeepers, expressing their concern about the increase in charges. Now, my role as a councillor, I think, and I stand to be corrected, is to reflect general public and businesses' point of view. And that's what I've tried to do. If the £2 charge still goes ahead, I feel that I cannot support that. So that means that I wouldn't be able to support the budget. So as there is an amendment put forward tonight for £1.20, which I think is a compromise, I think my conscience tells me that I have to support that tonight. And I know that won't be popular, but that is, you know, I have to accept that. And I will be supporting the amendment, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Councillor Moulding, Andrew, on the amendment, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think a lot of this is to do with timing. It was only at the Cabinet meeting earlier this month that we were aware that there was a proposal for all car parks that were previously £1 to go to £1.50, and the very popular car parks would go to £2. Now, we haven't had long to consider that, and Councillor Eileen Wragg said she hasn't had one phone call. She hasn't had one phone call because nobody has actually heard about it yet. As Mr. Goodman said earlier, there's been no consultation whatsoever with East Devon residents or East Devon businesses. And I'm sure that if you had consulted with those businesses and those residents, they would have given you a very concerned answer to those questions. And businesses, as we know, have had a challenging time. And I understand that when, and I remember when we put car park charges up from 85p an hour to £1 an hour, it took some years for the council to recover the same amount of revenue they receive from their car parks, because people immediately stopped using them. So I don't think necessarily putting car parking charges up to £2 is the right thing to do. And as far as the balance of the budget is concerned, this won't be the first time that one would have to go back to our officers, to our Simon Davey, and look very carefully at the general fund balance, at the staffing requests, and make those changes with the leader and deputy leader and the cabinet members so that we can balance the books with the £1.20 increase, or the increase to £1.20, which the amendment proposes, and I will support that.
Thank you, Councillor Moulding. Councillor Davey, Ollie.
Thank you, Chair. It's been alleged time and time again that this will be a deterrent to parking in town centres. If it leads to a drop in use, which I very much doubt actually, that would actually benefit pedestrians and cyclists. I have struggled to get across a road today because there was so much traffic pouring into Exmouth. But I don't think it will lead to a drop in use, and that's for a very simple reason. We've recently seen something like a 25% increase in fuel prices, somewhere along those lines, and it hasn't changed behaviour at all. So I don't think it's going to make much difference to people's behaviour. Behaviour change tends to come when a zero charge is replaced by a charge. But if you change the charge, the effect on behaviour is much different. We've heard a lot about online shopping. I think that's here to stay anyway, so I don't think that that's what our town centres are necessarily going to be for. And I still like to go into the town centre for my fresh fruit and veg. I don't want to shop online for fresh fruit and veg. And I really do think that while shops and businesses will tend to cry out about this, they will be surprised that it doesn't actually have the effect that they are predicting. I'll stand to be corrected, but I think that all the evidence is that shops and businesses tend to overestimate the number of people who come to their businesses who actually arrive by car. A considerable number actually come on foot or by other means. So I will be supporting the increase that we have proposed tonight and hope that it has some effect on the congestion in our town centres.
Thank you, Ollie. I've got 3 more speakers. I'm going to allow one extra from each of the main parties than I'd originally allowed, but you'll have to bear with me on that one. Councillor Rickson, Marianne.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to say that I agree with the comments made by Councillor Ragg. I've had absolutely no inquiries, no phone calls, no emails at all. The petition, which was started in Sidmouth by Mr Goodman, I believe, only mentions the headline price increase. However, I know personally that car parks in Sidmouth are seriously congested in the high season, as is the Bedford Lawn car park, which has people waiting to park there, causing traffic problems in Station Road, although their initial fee starts at £2. We also have free parking on the Esplanade and free parking for shoppers outside the co-op and the area there. So in fact, if you park there at 9 o'clock in the morning, you don't actually need to leave until 10:30 because on-street parking restrictions only apply after 10 o'clock and you have to leave after half an hour, which means you have until 10:30. So there is free parking if you know where to go. And there still will be.
Thank you, Councillor Rickson. Councillor Cahill, Fred. On the amendment, please.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm sorry, I thought you were going to call Councillor Arnott first because he had his hand up before me. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to sort of throw a little bit of thing into the mix because I'm a bit concerned about this legality side of things with regard to where the money's going once it's made from car parks. I've got to be honest, I don't understand all these things, but obviously it's been clarified by Andrew Ennis that we can use money in other ways. If we're short of money, why don't we be a bit radical and think outside the box? Exeter City Council have been using canopy photovoltaic cells on canopies in car parks since 2015. So why don't we put some of these solar panels in car parks rather than in fields and make some money out of them? Surely that would help our budgets and our costs at district council level by using the environment and protecting the environment. And you know, it's putting the ecological and environmental impact onto the car park where we can make some money. It may not be pretty, but it would serve a purpose. And if people like Exeter City Council and Bentley Car Factory and Crewe or wherever it is can use canopy car parking to help fund their factory, and Exeter City Council can do it to help fund their economy, surely we could do it. But that's just what I wanted to say, really.
Thank you, Fred. Now, just fair warning, Simon and Mark, I'm going to we started this run on the amendment with the Leader of the Opposition, and I intend to finish it before a vote with the Leader of the Council for balance. But what I'd actually appreciate immediately after the Leader of the Council speaks is a precise summary so members are clearly aware of the implications of either supporting this amendment or not supporting it. This is not me prejudging which way they make that decision, but I want all members to be absolutely fully aware of what it is they're signing up for. Okay, Simon, there you go. There's your time. It's like 3 minute warning, isn't it? Councillor Arnott, over to you on the amendment, please.
Thank you, Chair, very much. I'll be 30 seconds if you want to start the timer. I would commend all members, perhaps on Zoom later, and indeed members of the press, to look at Councillor Young's speech which summed up the true position. I commend them to look at Councillor Rixon's speech, which summed up the true position in relation to parking in Sidmouth. And I would like to just point out to all members and to the public that points such as just made by Councillor Cahill, which were really interesting, and I'd love to hear more of. There was a car park TAF which was under the scrutiny committee chaired by Conservative members for 2 years. And he didn't get anywhere. He didn't get anywhere. So now the council has to get your job done for you, and that's what we're doing tonight. Chair, a question I've got, and I think I hope this is helpful, mindful that you're going to ask the CEO and S151 to come in. Can I just ask for some guidance, some absolute clarification on this matter of legality? It's being thrown around rather a lot. And I wonder if we can ask Mark or Simon or Andrew to come in and just put us straight on that through you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. I can think it's a sensible bit in that it obviously gives Simon another couple of minutes to get his pencil sharpened. Mark, would you like to pick that one up?
Sure, yeah. So, sorry. You're muted.
So I just said thank you.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, so, well, I can refer you to the email that the monitoring officer sent out last Friday, and also to the email that the service lead sent out today. But fundamentally, the position we're in today is no different to the position we've been in for the last 20 years. That's my tenure, if you like, as chief executive of this council. The legal position has always been the same, provided you're satisfied that you're doing the right thing by car parks in terms of what you want to use car parks for and the objectives in terms of turnover and all those types of things. If additional income is generated on the back of that, you can use that for other council services. So there's nothing new, in this debate from my perspective in terms of legalities. We are where we've been, as I say, for the last 20 years fundamentally.
Thank you very much. In that I intend to put it to the vote after this. Simon and Mark, anything you'd like to make absolutely clear to members on the implications of the vote they make at this point in relation to this amendment, please?
Well, I'll ask Simon to come in on the particular points, but again, just to be clear, it's been our consistent practice over the years with regard to adopting the budget and listening to various sort of opposition proposals, if you like, that if on the one hand you want to see income to the council reduced for a change in the budget, there is a corresponding obligation on you to identify the implications of that reduction in income. And for the same matter, if you wanted to increase expenditure, you needed to show where we could get the income to finance that expenditure. So that's the key thing here. That, yep, we understand what the headline impact of the amendment is, but members also need to be made clear, because, as I say, it didn't come through from the proposer and the seconder themselves. And that's what Simon needs to do, is just to outline the likely consequence is going to be A, B, or C. So over to Simon.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Chair. So the chief exec laid out the implications in terms of, so the decision on car park charges has had an implication on the budget in terms of, once you've decided what your car park charges are, then that income has become available in your budget to determine how you're going to spend it. With the proposal that's in terms of the resolution and the budget that's been recommended by council and your papers tonight, you have a balanced budget. If you change the proposal regarding car park charges from what's in the budget that came forward from Cabinet, you're significantly reducing the income that's available to your budget. The reason for that is, and Andrew Ennis, the service lead, could add to what I'm saying, but basically by the proposal of the package of increasing your prime car parks to £2, they're the vast majority of where you get your income through car parks. So by the alternative proposal that's put forward of £1.20 across the board, by no means are you getting anywhere near the same level of income, because the turnover, the amount of income in those other car parks are just nowhere near your top 20, top 27 car parks. So this is the reason why I'm going to mention these figures might come as a surprise to you. But we've heard the 540 that would be gained from £1.20 across all car parks. But I said at the beginning of the debate, we've already accounted for 300,000 of that in our base budget, because that was a decision already made. So you only had 240 to put into the pot of your budget, if you like. What's being taken out is just over £1 million in terms of that additional revenue for the £1.50, £2 car parks. So the net figure you're looking at is 1,029,000 that we need to find now if that proposal, that amendment is approved. So for me, as your Section 151 officer, car park decision to one side, okay. The implication now on the budget is, where are we going to find a reduction of 1 million in your expenditure in order for you to have a balanced budget? There were items in the Cabinet report that is the minutes are attached to your agenda in terms of items that were put in the budget that you may consider now taking out. But those proposals need to come forward at this point if you're going to go forward with a balanced budget.
Thank you, Simon. I think there's plenty for members to ponder on there. We did actually earlier on have a proposal for a recorded vote, if I remember correctly. Now, I didn't ask for a second to that at the time. If anybody wishes to second the recorded vote,
I will. Skinner.
That's Councillor Skinner seconding the recorded vote on the.
Can I ask a question, please? So I did have my hand up. Can I ask?
I know, Councillor Bailey, but I had stopped at the point I actually wanted to go to the vote on the amendment, if I could.
I just wanted to ask a question about the amendment, if I may.
Is it a clarification question?
Yes, it is. I'm concerned.
Okay, very, very quickly. If you could.
I'm concerned about having a vote on one side, so a potential very substantial reduction in income without it having been identified how that is going to be balanced by a reduction in our overheads. So I'm not clear that we can actually go ahead with a vote on one side without being clear from the proposer and the seconder how do they propose that we save £1 million in our costs. And I'm concerned about doing it in a two-stage process as opposed to a composite vote on a package of actually how they're going to present a balanced budget. And I'm concerned that unless we have that, we're potentially not going to have a balanced budget. So what happens if the council takes a vote on this and then can't agree how it's going to save the £1 million? Thank you.
That's correct. I think without putting words in the chief exec's mouth, I think the chief exec went through that particular area in response to my first question and confirmed quite clearly that he felt it was the responsibility of the proposers of the amendment to match the loss of revenue that they were proposing implicit in their amendment with an appropriate change in terms of expenditure. And that's been the position that Simon Davies confirmed. I believe, Mark, that I quoted you correctly there, Mr. Williams. Mark, is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Thank you.
If we were here in person, as it were, you'd be looking the proposer in the eye, and you'd be saying, "Okay, so what are the cuts going to be, please?" And it's legitimate to expect that.
Chair, could I also add in a separate point? I think a number of members mentioned the query about if we're going to £1.20 an hour, where did that leave some of the other issues? The winter payment, the residence permit. I don't know if members have had that clarified, if we're looking for matters of clarification.
Well, I think, sorry, I don't want to go get across to this. I think actually one's got to look as as the chief executive said to the proposer, one assumes that the proposer of the amendment had the implicit shortfall in revenue and the requirement to balance through a reduction in costs in mind when it was proposed. Because in fairness, this budget was considered in great detail by a joint overview and scrutiny committees over 2 days, with an enormous amount of time spent outside that forum. So I'm assuming that that's clear, and that's. But I say, as chair, I've got pretty little option other than to ask our officers to highlight the implications of a potential decision. And I think then, if one's got to look to it, then is where the council goes in the event that this amendment is supported. Because frankly, as chair, I'm not sure. Is a charitable way of putting it.
Excuse me, Chair. I know I haven't got my hand up, but there was a couple of things that Councillor Arnott said that wasn't weren't facts as such. He said the TAF had been meeting under the Conservatives for the past 2 years and nothing have come of it. That's not true. We had a £1.20 increase at the last council.
Councillor Brown, sorry, in fairness, I'd hesitate to ever interrupt anybody, but I think we've gone a little bit beyond that point now. I think the crux of the matter.
All I'm trying to do is put a fact straight that was said.
Okay, but the crux of the matter now is as proposer of this amendment, as the chief executive, our Section 151 officer, and in fairness, sitting aside from all this as chair, I think it's reasonable now to, if you want to proceed with this, is to come back with what the balance is. Where's the reduction in revenue expenditure going to come from? Because if we can't come up with that as a balance as part of this process, it's a very dangerous road for this council to go down to approve this amendment.
Well, there's a staff wish list that people want to get extra staff in that comes to, I think, 723,000. I'm just speaking what I can remember from it. And there's a £50,000 tree strategy is in there. I mean, that in itself saves £800,000.
So are you proposing those should go in as part of your amendment?
Well, they should go, yes. I mean, we can't have a wish list of what people want and extra staff people want. I mean, some of the things which I haven't got written down. Some of these staff wages and proposals are excessive, to say the least.
I think you've got to be specific.
Sorry, Chair, may I ask for clarification a moment, if I may?
Okay, sorry, can I get through this one? Unless it's in specific, I'm really trying to tease out from the proposer of the amendment, Vicky, Councillor Johns, my apologies for interrupting you. I will come back to you because I know you haven't spoken yet. But I don't want to get off the subject here, that really, to specifically pick up on the comments of our chief executive and of our finance lead. We need to come up not just with a general view as to where these savings are going to come from to balance this. I mean, so we've clearly started off now that the street strategy.
We've got streets £50,000. We've got pay restructure grades £174,000. We've got Exmouth Lifeboat Services, £45,000.
So you're suggesting all of these go? So my apologies for interrupting you, Councillor Brown, but are you suggesting that all these go as part of your amendment?
And no, things like this should be looked at more closely. I mean, it's large amounts of figures we're looking at.
It is. Sorry, I don't want to get. I was trying for clarification on this, and I've got struggling. But at some point, I'll take it. Councillor Johns, hopefully with the words of wisdom that solve a way through this. Other than that, I'm afraid I've got to put the vote on a recorded vote. I don't see any option to that. Constitutionally, Mr. Williams, do I have any alternative?
Sorry, something else was happening. Could you just repeat that, please?
Well, you're watching Mr. Whitty. No, I was saying that it constitutionally now, and on the basis that we've outlined to the proposer of the amendment the requirements, and they're not really, well, it's fair to say that there isn't a specific proposal to balance the reduction in revenue that would result as a change in the car park side. Do I have any constitutional alternative but to put this amendment to the vote now? Or, I mean, It's not a situation I've been in before, to be totally honest, because normally by this point we've all gone
So-
into line.
I think you can accept that the amendment is a valid amendment, but it is also an incomplete amendment. So the key issue for members when they're voting is, okay, this isn't just the headline proposal that you're voting for. You are impliedly accepting cuts of £1 million, circa £1 million in the council's budget, and that's what you're going to have to address with it, because this is just an amendment to the budget. Okay.
Correct. Yes. Okay. Councillor Johns, very briefly, please, because I want to go straight to the recorded vote, and if we could.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm a little bit concerned that Councillor Brown referred to it as a wish list from the staff. So is he saying that he thinks that their wish list insinuates the fact that they wish to be paid proper wages, they wish to have the correct staffing levels to do their jobs to their thorough ability? You know, the lifeboat service wishes to be able to rescue people when they're drowning out at sea. I'm not quite sure what the wish list is. And I don't see how we can vote on incomplete amendments. So basically, as far as I can work out, the officers and the staff have done a fantastic job telling us exactly what we need. But the amendment is saying that staff are basically wishing for things, which I think is a terrible phrase in the first place, because it belittles the amount of work that's been put into this in the first place. And I cannot vote on an incomplete amendment where we're basically saying, no, you can't have the money that you need to run the facilities correctly and to ensure the safety of our residents, etc. But actually, I can't think of a good enough reason. I haven't looked down the back of my sofa or rubbed the genie's lamp to find the money for you. So I don't quite see how we can vote on an incomplete amendment, because it will make a mockery of the entire system.
I think actually we can vote on an incomplete amendment by treating it as being exactly that. And as to if for me, if an amendment in this, and I'm talking from a personal perspective now, and as chair of the council, that it's implicit, there's a perfectly logical requirement to have the counterbalance where there's a proposed reduction in income, that how it's going to be done by a reduction in expenditure. And my personal view is one might take the view that if that amendment isn't complete, then it isn't acceptable. But that's something for individual members to take. So I'm sorry, Councillor Hall, I really don't want to carry on with this amendment, because we've
just
got
a point of clarification. That's all, Chair, with the greatest respect.
Can you make it very quick, please? I wouldn't, but I know you've been away for a while.
Chair, I'm trying to think a way around this, but on a point of clarification, with this amendment, if the amendment and the vote was taken and the amendment had enough votes for it to be carried, and then there won't be, from what we've seen from our section 151 officer, we will not have a balanced budget. My question through you, Chair, is would there be another opportunity on time to be able to reconvene and to debate the implications if the car park charges were held at put to 120? Is there another opportunity to debate the budget again on timelines? That is all I'm asking for clarification.
I don't know the answer to that in terms of timelines, whether, Mark, your lights come on again.
So the answer is yes, because the actual decision will be taken on Wednesday nights when council meets in person, as it were, at the Ocean. The point of tonight is to try and get the will of the meeting, the will of the council, to understand what decision needs to be taken in person on Wednesday night. But, you know, sequentially, Councillor Hall, if the amendment is carried, then you still got to then debate the budget, and the debate on the budget will be in the knowledge that £1 million worth of savings in that budget need to be found. And as officers will be advising you that you need to do that tonight, so that when we go to council on Wednesday evening, then we all know what is proposed, because that way we can have a properly legally binding vote, fundamentally.
So, Chair, there won't be any opportunity after Wednesday night. Is that clear? Is that absolute deadline?
If you, yeah, I will be holding guns to your heads if you don't set a budget on Wednesday night, because you'll be messing up the county council's budget, you'll be messing up the police budget, you'll be messing up the fire budget, you'll be messing up the town and parish council's budgets. You'll also have your names recorded so that when the Secretary of State sends in commissioners, they'll know who to interview. Okay.
I thank you for the clarification.
On that happy note,
Mark, for
clarification. Oh, hold on. I'm not going to take any more speakers on this, I think now, Colin.
No, sorry. Can I just say something for clarification, please, Chair? Could we have a meeting tomorrow night where I could come back with a balanced budget?
Well, I think what I would say to you, Colin, is that we did have a conversation, was it last week or the week before, when I said, you know how the thing works. If you come to a council meeting with a proposal which has a severe impact on income or expenditure, the obligation is to explain, how you're going to make up the deficit or reduce the income problem. So you've known for a good 2 weeks, I would say, that that's what will be expected of you tonight, if I'm honest.
Thank you for that. Right, we're going now. I'm sorry about speakers in this. There'll be plenty of chances to speak in relation to the budget itself, hopefully. But at this point, I'd like to move to, I don't know, Sue, can you administer a recorded vote for me, Sue, please? Is it Sue somewhere?
Yes, Chair.
Oh, you're there. Sorry, you weren't on my screen. How do you want to play this? So the vote would be, firstly, to vote whether you vote for the amendment, which was the move to £1.20 across the board, I think, on the car parks. I can't remember the exact wording, or whether you want to confirm that for me, Simon or Sue. Do you have the full wording?
Chair, do we need a vote on the recorded vote?
We can have one if you want. Sorry, that's correct. We'll have a vote on the recorded vote first. Do you want a recorded vote on the recorded vote?
Just do that by show of hands, ideally, Chair.
Okay, quick show of hands. All those in favour of a recorded vote, please. On the... Well, we got show of everything there, so that'll do. I think that's comfortably carried. So we have a recorded vote. Thank you for that, Councillor Johns, for keeping me out of the queer street. So we'll work that through now. So
sorry, Chair. Again, just for clarity and for certainty, the proposal I've got written down is that where car park is currently charged at £1 an hour, that will be increased to £1.20 an hour. So it's not across the board, if you like. It's in relation to where car parking is currently charged at £1 an hour.
Thank you for that. And can we confirm, Simon, that was exactly what your information given to members was based on? A quick yes or no?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. That's what I like. A quick yes. So over to you, Sue, please.
Okay. Councillor Armstrong. Voting for or against, or abstaining?
Sorry, I was on mute. The amendment, I'm voting against the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Arnott?
Against, thank you.
Councillor Bailey?
Against, thank you.
Councillor Barrow?
For.
Councillor Bonetta?
Against, thank you.
Councillor Brown?
For.
Councillor Bruce?
For.
Councillor Cahill?
For.
Councillor Chamberlain?
Oh, there.
Councillor Chamberlain?
I think she might be having technical issues, Sue, because I've let her in a couple of times.
Right, okay.
So she's certainly not been here.
Okay. Councillor Chapman?
For.
Councillor Chubb?
For.
Councillor Coleman?
Against.
Councillor Davey?
Against.
Councillor Desarum?
Okay,
the
then
amendment,
just call the name, that's all. Okay, bye.
Sorry, Councillor Desarum, I didn't hear.
No problem. I repeat that. As the seconder, Sue, you appreciate that I am for this amendment. Thank you very much, Sue.
Councillor Dent,
For.
Councillor Faithful,
Abstain.
Councillor Gardner,
Against.
Councillor Gazzard,
I am going to vote against now, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Hall,
For.
Councillor Hartnell,
For.
Councillor Hawkins,
Against.
Councillor Haywood,
Against.
Councillor Hookway,
Against.
Councillor Howe,
For.
Councillor Hughes, Councillor Hughes,
They declared.
You declared an
Hughes
interest.
and Twist, yeah, Hughes and Twist declared DPI, so they won't be voting on this.
Oh, sorry, right, okay. Councillor Ingham,
For.
Councillor Jarvis,
Against.
Councillor Johns,
Definitely against, Sue. Thank you.
Councillor Young,
Against.
Councillor Kemp,
Against. Thank you.
Councillor Key,
For.
Councillor Lawrence,
For.
Councillor Ledger,
Against.
Councillor Loudon,
Against. Thank you.
Councillor Manley,
Against.
Councillor McCollum,
Against.
Councillor Miller,
Most definitely against, Sue. Thank you.
Councillor Moulding,
For.
Councillor Parr,
For.
Councillor Pepper,
For.
Councillor Pook,
Against.
Councillor Pratt,
Against.
Councillor Ranger,
Against.
Councillor Rickson,
Against.
Councillor Rowland,
Against.
Councillor Rylance, sorry,
Against.
Councillor
Okay.
Skinner,
For.
Councillor Taylor,
Against.
Councillor Thomas,
Against.
Councillor Twist, Councillor Wibley,
Against.
Councillor Woodward,
Against.
Councillor Ragg,
Against.
Councillor Chris Wright,
Against.
Councillor Tom Wright.
For.
5, 6.
Okay.
We're going to watch telly.
Not yet.
Okay. I've got 32 votes against, 19 for, and 1 abstention. Sarah, can you confirm that?
Yes, I had the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue and Sarah. That means the amendment falls. And we go back to the budget itself as presented in the report summary on page 15 of the meeting papers. Does anybody want to speak on the budget itself, or can we go straight to a vote on the budget paper, please? No
Chair,
speakers?
Chair, may I just have...
Sorry, Alistair. Yeah,
that's okay.
I don't have a hand.
I'm quite shocked at tonight's meeting, actually. I have to say I'm really surprised, and I've never seen a situation where a chief executive is threatening councillors with government officers knocking on their door. I don't know what's gone on tonight, frankly, and as a result, I'm leaving the meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Speaking on the budget itself, Councillor Rowland. Jack.
Thank you, Chair. Pleased that we've managed to get to this stage in the process then, in view of the timescales involved. I won't go over what we've already discussed about car park charges, but there are a few issues that I think it's important to bear in mind when we're looking at this at the budget. If you think in terms of the pressures that have been on this district council over this past year, it has been a very difficult process to arrive at getting a balanced budget. And if you think of some of the issues that we've faced, and I'll give you a couple of examples. One is to do with Leisure East Devon, where we've had to support that service considerably, because unlike where similar services would be provided in-house, the government have provided much more support, whereas we've had to largely take the hit upon our own resources. So that's been a big hit in terms of the financial support we've had to give. If you look at other subjects as well, we've already heard that over the past 12 years, car park charges weren't increased, but having chaired recently a budget setting and capital allocation meeting, it was very evident from that meeting as well the extent to which this administration is having to pick up subjects where there's been lack of proper maintenance on a high number of assets over many years, where the costs are higher than what they should have been if proper maintenance had been carried out as it should have been. So there are many chickens that are coming home to roost, and I'm pleased that this administration is actually tackling some of those issues. I didn't come in to be elected as a councillor always to be popular. It's not a popularity stakes that we're talking about. Sometimes we have to take tough decisions, and we are taking those tough decisions in the best interests of residents, much as other people might disagree with that. That is my firm belief, because we are, through this budget process, actually protecting frontline services. And if we didn't, very, very quickly, we would have many more complaints about deterioration in frontline services, much more so than any adverse comments we are receiving from people at the moment about car park charges, where I'm quite angry about how that petition has actually been put forward as well, because people haven't been given the full picture about those car park structures. They've only been given the headline about doubling, which is not true by any extent, because if you look at the details, which I'm not going to go over again because we've covered that earlier, but that's a good example. So I would actually, now that we've thankfully got to this stage of being able to look at the whole budget, I'm pleased to support what's in the agenda papers, and I'll certainly obviously be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Councillor Ledger, Dan, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. I think now we've got that kind of portion out of the way, we can be a lot more positive. I think one of the things that I think is evident from this evening is there is a lot of missing information, and comms is going to be key for the car parking strategy that we're trying to implement. And that is something that I think Andrew Hopkins is going to be fantastic at, taking us forward throughout this year in getting the message out to residents of the permits available to them, the winter rates that are an absolute steal, and all the reasons why we should be getting people to come into East Devon. Looking forward to the next year's budget, and I'm really hopeful that hopefully the members will vote through this evening and then again on Wednesday. I think just the additional ask of that £1 million, I could see it now, what would be in the press tomorrow morning. East Devon votes to cut £1 million from services. Now that would have just been terrible. What we have done though is add 285,000 into street scene. So the likes of Budley and Cranbrook are going to see the most benefit of there, so that they're not sharing staff anymore. And our seafronts and towns are going to look a lot better for it. You're going to see environmental health get an additional 300,000 with a service that was really lacking, really struggling on its feet, and hopefully we'll be able to get it that properly resourced so that it can be working full steam ahead again. Development management, I think it's been an unprecedented year. We've never had as many applications going through development management, and I know that there is a budget of 130,000, but that is actually a cost saving because currently we're paying agency staff to do the work. So we're going to get permanent staff in to do the work, and we'll end up having a cost saving. And then art and culture, something that's been missed, I think, from East Devon for many years. The administration and council are now putting it to the forefront, and we're seeing real benefits. So the last thing I want to put forward is obviously the housing task force that's coming forward. We've already recruited a service lead for that. We are recruiting additional people, and we will hopefully see in the next few years this council starting to deliver social homes again, and actually develop them ourselves. There is so many things to be positive about in this budget. I know that we've just had quite a robust debate for the last hour on car parks, but looking forward as a council, I think every single member here should be proud of what we've achieved with this budget and what we're looking forward to in the next year. So thanks very much, Chair.
Thanks for that, Dan. Councillor Miller. Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank the Leader of the Council, the Cabinet and all of our officers for delivering what I think is I'm sure my Labour colleague, Councillor Bethesda, thinks as well, is a brilliant budget. Going forward, we're investing in our services again, and it's been a lot of hard work. And I want to thank this council. I think we've taken brave decisions, the decisions that have had to be made. I have one question, which is why I've asked to speak, which is Councillor Rowland touched on it, and it's a question for the Leader of the Council, really. It's on LED, and it's this money that LED has lost, a significant amount of money. I believe it's over £1 million that the council have had to support LED with. Last I heard that the Leader was speaking with our two, I believe 3 local MPs. And I just want to know from the Leader's perspective, are our MPs fighting for us in Westminster on this issue? It is a huge injustice that our neighbouring authorities that have their leisure services run in-house received nearly full compensation for the losses they incurred, whilst we have, I believe, received nothing. This is a battle we need to fight, and I just wanted to know from the Leader whether he's made any progress on this issue and whether our MPs are fighting for us. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Leader, would you like to answer that? As soon as you're next to speak anyway. Sorry, I thought you were going to pick it up. You don't normally wait for it.
Always through the chair. I'm a dream of just piping straight up. Thank you.
I remember that.
Yeah. Oh dear, it's recorded as well, isn't it? Yes, to answer that question from Councillor Miller, absolutely. I mean, we have been asking very politely of our MPs for a very long time. I mean, look, if I'm completely honest with you, when I think it's nearly 2 years ago now, let's call it about 20 months, when we first said that we would underwrite what really amounts to about £1.6 million to keep LED on the road. And Mr. Sunak was out there saying, don't worry, everybody, will cover all your losses for COVID. We're all in this together, etc., etc. I think quite a number of us in Cabinet thought, yeah, let's see where that goes. And here we are all this time later, and those losses haven't been covered. We obviously want to retain good, positive and diplomatic relationships with all of our MPs. And we have written to them on this matter and spoken to them on this matter. But I have to say, as of this morning, to Councillor Miller, we've heard absolutely nothing back whatsoever. So I Well, do you know what? I won't put Mr. Davey on the spot, but I mean, I don't think either of us will be going down to the betting shop in Seaton expecting that this cheque's going to arrive. And if you want me to put a finer point on that, Councillor Miller, I think that is an absolutely gross betrayal of the people of East Devon. And we've heard a lot of strong words tonight in the previous debate. And I don't think, well, I'm certain our Conservative members here can't be blamed for that. They're not in Parliament and they clearly don't have the ear, probably even of the MPs. Or if they do, it would be nice for them to put some pressure on. And the direct effect as of now is that our reserves are depleted. We're down to about £3.2 million. We can't go any lower. We should have another £1.6 million in that, but we haven't. Thanks, Chair. Chair, can I speak to what I actually wanted to say as well? Is that okay, since I was next to speak?
Yeah, I thought I was going to get over that one. Okay, on you go.
I know this one really will be a 30-seconder, which is, I'd just like to endorse what Councillor Ledger has said. It's really important, these bruising debates happen, but if you look at what the council has achieved, and I don't care about the politics or who's in the administration, I'm looking about what our officers have done, what they've put in place, these new things we have done around Exmouth, around housing, around tourism, around arts and culture strategy, about the housing moving forward, as Dan was saying, all the work on the local plan, all the work on the council plan, and COVID. It's easy to forget, isn't it? I know Mr. Johnson likes to pretend it's all over, but they've put in the most amazing job. And the final thing I'd like to say, Chair, and I think it really has to be said, is I do understand Councillor Bruce's confusion, and I can see why he therefore felt he had to leave the meeting. But to me, it was an appalling comment to make about our CEO, who was giving us absolutely straight advice all the way through this, which was greatly appreciated by right-thinking members. And I feel sorry for Councillor Bruce, because I just don't think perhaps he's been inducted by the Conservative Party properly to understand these matters. And surely they understood tonight, did they not, that if they're going to put forward a wrecking motion, maybe they needed to make sure that at least Councillors Hughes and Twist didn't have a DPI. But that's just a piece of advice from me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parr. Helen, you had your hand up. Would you want to speak on the budget?
No, I have. I did want to ask a question, but I don't want to ask it anymore.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. I just didn't want to miss you out. Right then, there we go. I think we've got the. In fact, I'll move the report then from the chair. That's the budget report as presented. Could I ask members to vote in favour or against in the normal way, please, or abstain if they wish from supporting the report to go forward for approval by the extraordinary meeting of council on Wednesday, the 23rd of February.
Chair, voting's underway. Got some very strange symbols coming up, but I think we've got 34, 35 voting for, 8 against, and 1 hand, 9 against, and 1 hand, which I'm assuming is an abstention.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased that that's actually, I can now confirm that this report and its recommendations contained therein are recommended by council for presentation and approval at the extraordinary council meeting on the 23rd of February. And just as a final word on that bit, I was very impressed by Councillor Gazard's heart that appeared as a voting symbol, which I think that's got to be a first. Right, onto the little bit here. Agenda item 10, reports from Cabinet and Council's committees and questions on those reports. Could I receive the minutes for the following committees, please, and invite members to vote in each case in favour using the green tick or against with the red cross, recommending passing for approval to officers as appropriate where there are recommendations, or receiving and noting when there are no recommendations. Recommendations are summarised on pages 28 to 31.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to present the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 5th of January 2022, minute numbers 126 and 148. I don't know if you'd like me to present the other set of minutes as well, Chair, or do these separately?
I think we'll do those separately for safety.
Thank you.
So that's item 10A, for the leader, minutes of Cabinet, 5th of January. All those in favour, please tick your green ticks.
Okay, Chair, I have 36 votes in favour. No, it's just gone up. Sorry, sudden spurt up to 38. 38 votes in favour.
Thank you. I can confirm that those minutes are received and noted. Item 10B, again, is the leader. Minutes of Cabinet held on the 2nd of February 2022.
Well, you said it all then, Chair. Thank you. I'd like to put forward those, therefore, the minute numbers 149 to 171 with thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Again, could we please vote on those sets of minutes?
Okay, Chair, I have 34 votes in favour.
Thank you. I confirm those minutes are received and noted. Item 10C, Tom Wright. Councillor Tom
Yes,
Wright.
thank you, Chair. I would like to present the minutes of the Scrutiny Committee held on the 2nd of December 2021, minutes numbers 20 to 30. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Could we please vote in the normal way, please?
Okay, Chair, I have 39 votes, 40 votes, 41 votes in favour.
Hang on, we'll make it to 60. Thank you. Confirm that the minutes are received and noted. Next item, 10D. Councillor Vicky Johns, please.
I would like to present the minutes of the joint budget meeting of the Scrutiny and Overview Committees. Hello. Held on the 12th of January, minute numbers 31 to 37.
I invite members to vote in the normal way, please.
Okay, I have 39 votes in favour, Chair.
Thank you. Can confirm that those minutes are received and noted. Next, item 10E. Councillor Tom Wright, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to present the minutes of the joint budget meeting of the Scrutiny and Overview Committees held on the 17th of January 2022, minutes numbers 38 to 44. And if you'll excuse me, I've got a cough breaking out, so after I vote, I will excuse myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Wright. Can I invite members to vote in favour or against as normal, please?
Okay, I have 41 votes in favour, Chair.
Getting better every time. Thank you. Can I confirm that those minutes are received and noted as well, please? Item 10F, Councillor Chamberlain has not actually been able to get in. Is there a vice chair of the Housing Review Board in the building?
They're a tenant, unfortunately, Chair.
Oh. Is there anybody who was there at the meeting on the 13th of January of the Housing Review Board who was a member of the committee?
Yes, I was at the meeting.
You were there, Brenda, were you?
Yes, I was.
Well, I'll tell you what, special treat tonight. Could you move the minutes, please?
I can. I'd be pleased to move the minutes of the meeting on the 17th, was it, of January?
13th of January.
The 13th of January. I'd like to move those minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Much appreciated. Can I invite members to vote in favour or against? Same as normal, please.
Thank you. I have 40 votes in favour. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, we're one short on that one. Next is items 10H, 10I, 10J, 10K from a very busy Councillor Dan Ledger, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I'd like to present the minutes of the Strategic Planning Committee of the 14th of December, minutes 51 to 57. Just as a small point, there is one typo in the agenda packs at the bottom of page 103. I think it's the second bullet point from the end. It's a small typo, but hopefully that can be accepted by members. I think it's pretty evident on what it should be. I'm not allowed to say it in a meeting.
Yeah, well, I think, do you want to move the rest of them at the same time, Dan?
Yeah, no problem. So I'll move the minutes of the meeting on the 11th of January, minutes 58 to 65, on the meeting of the 25th of January, minutes 66 to 67, minutes of the 26th of January, minutes 68 to 69, and the minutes of the 8th of February, minutes 70 to 75. I'll move all of those minutes.
Thank you very much. Can I now invite members to vote in favour or against receiving and noting the minutes, please, as normal?
Okay, Chair, we have 40 votes in favour.
Thank you. Confirm that those minutes are received and noted. Next on to item 10L and 10M. Councillor Ragg.
Present the minutes of the meeting of the Planning Committee, 15th of December, 19th of January, and move those as recorded.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ragg. Can I invite members to vote in favour or against receiving and noting these minutes, please?
Okay, Chair, I have 36 votes in favour.
Thank you. I confirm the minutes are received and noted. Next on to item 10N. Councillor Whibley.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the minutes of the licensing and enforcement subcommittee meeting of the 9th of February. That is minutes, excuse me, while I zoom in, 26 to 30. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whibley. Can I invite members to vote in favour or against receiving and noting the minutes in the usual way, please?
Chair, I have 36 votes in favour.
Thank you very much. I confirm the minutes are received and noted. Next on to item 10O. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the minutes of the Audit and Governance Committee meeting held on the 20th of January 2022, minutes numbers 27 to 38.
Excuse me. Lovely. Can I now invite members to vote in favour or against receiving and noting those minutes, please?
One there.
Okay, Chair, I have 34 votes in favour.
Thank you very much. I confirm the minutes are received and noted. Next on to item 10P, which is one of mine, minutes of the Personnel Committee held on the 27th of January 2022, items 17 to 25. Could I invoke members to vote in favour or against receiving and noting these minutes, please?
Okay, Chair, I have 36 votes in favour.
Thank you. I confirm that those minutes are received on noted and noted. Agenda item 10Q was a matter of urgency I mentioned earlier on. This item is added to the agenda as a matter of urgency due to the fact that a recommendation on the reward review needed to go to council at the earliest opportunity. So this is minutes of the Extraordinary Personnel Committee held on the 18th of February, which obviously only had one item. So could we vote in favour or against receiving and noting those minutes, please?
Okay, I have 32 votes in favour and 2 hands in the air. So I assume that's an abstention.
Fair enough. Okay. Item 10R is Councillor Arnott, please, again.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. I'd like to present the minutes of the Strata Joint Executive Committee held in Newton Abbot, actually, on the 19th of January 2022, minute numbers 1 to 8.
Thank you very much, Councillor Arnott. Can I invite members to vote in favour or against receiving and noting these minutes, please?
Okay, Chair, I have 32 votes, 33 votes in favour.
Thank you. I confirm that the minutes are received and noted. Agenda item 11 is a matter of urgency. This item is added to the agenda as a matter of urgency due to the fact we're obliged to review the political balance figures as soon as reasonably practical after a change, and this council presents the last opportunity before April. Could I invite Henry as monitoring officer to address his report on changes to governance arrangements, please?
So in Henry's absence, Chair, if I can take you to page 203, you'll see the reasons why change is required, and the recommendations are 3 in number and set out on there, and I'm happy to explain them if necessary.
Everybody happy with those as presented? Councillor Arnott.
Yes, just like to pass a comment on that one, Chair, very quickly, if I may, which is just to say that genuinely, the Democratic Alliance Group wishes the Labour Group good health, good fortune, and we're delighted that they're forming their own group. And best of wishes. We're sad because they lose a few seats here and there, but congratulations to them. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bonetta, does this count as, it doesn't count as a maiden speech, does it? Is it a maiden speech as the leader of the Labour group? Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I suppose it does. I don't think any congratulations are in order specifically, but accepted anyway. Thank you very much. I wanted to thank Councillor Arnott for his comments that he just made there with regards to the forming of the Labour group. The Labour Party stands ready as a force across the entire nation for equality, fairness and justice for all, and that of course specifically goes for East Devon District Council as well. And as a relatively new party here anyway, we've obviously only been here since July, we are already really proud of what we have managed to achieve on the council, both as members of the Democratic Alliance and outside of the Democratic Alliance in our work as individual councillors. Obviously, as councillors will see, we have taken the decision to administratively split off from the administration for various different reasons. However, what we can, of course, reassure councillors is that we will still support a left of centre and progressive administration. And we look forward as a voice for good on the council to working with the Democratic Alliance for a stronger future together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Jake. Councillor Wragg, Eileen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Jake Bonetta and welcome him. I've only known of one Labour councillor in my time in East Devon, and I know that we believe in, as Liberal Democrats, in equality as well, and look very much forward to working with you and Paul Miller in the future, and hope that we can consolidate our energies and help represent people of East Devon. Thank you, who perhaps haven't felt represented in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eileen, and thank you to Mark for presenting Henry's report. I think Henry in absentia on a half-term holiday, I think, isn't it? I promised I'd get a mention of that in somewhere down the line. Could I now invite members to vote in favour or against receiving and noting the report and its 3 recommendations taken together, please.
Okay, Chair, I have 38 votes in favour, 40 votes in favour and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. I confirm that report from the monitoring officer is received and noted. Now move on to agenda item 12, which is a motion regarding housing requirements in the local authority area. I don't propose to read it all out, and members have all got the motion in front of them. It's proposed by Councillor Bailey, Jess, seconded by Councillor Johns. Councillor Bailey, Jess, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Thank you very much. Right. So I just want to make it clear from the start that actually, I suppose it's an amendment to my motion. And whilst I thank the Chief Executive for putting the amendment, the motion on the paper, this wasn't actually as I'd first proposed it to be. But for me, the main thing was to have a motion brought forward, because for me, the local plan and the housing that's required by the local plan is probably the most important issue facing our district. So I just want to make it clear from the outset that my motion is not about stopping the local plan, because I think it's inevitable, and I think I would agree with Councillor Ledger that we will be in a worse place if we pause it, even though that's what some authorities are doing. So just by way of background, everybody probably knows that we're required to build or deliver, not build, but deliver 918 houses per year up to 2041. And what I find completely shocking, and I think our residents do as well, that actually this isn't based on anything specific to do with our district. That's based on a top-down government approach that requires 300,000 houses a year as a target to be built. It uses a simple mathematical formula to achieve this based on projections from the Office of National Statistics. And what it really does is simply reinforces past trends. I don't believe this approach will solve the housing crisis faced by our district and the desperate need for genuinely affordable homes. And there are currently, as I understand it, 2,650 households in housing need in East Devon. I don't believe this approach takes account of the fact that there are currently 1,201 houses in our district that are standing empty at this point in time. And this approach, this top-down government approach, does not take into account the fact that more than 2,300 homes in our district are not even primary homes, but second homes. And the government's approach ignores the fact that 2/3 of our district are within the area of outstanding natural beauty. And there's virtually no brownfield land sites in our district that can be developed. This means that the proposal for 918 homes a year will destroy thousands of acres of green fields, requiring us to build probably another new town and to swamp our existing towns and villages, particularly in the third of the district, which is not covered by the AONB. The call for sites has shown us just how bad this can be. And I find it outrageous that our council could even be forced to contemplate seeing West Hill with 470 homes, Fennerton with an additional 650, and Ottery St Mary with an additional 1,300 houses. This is not sustainable development. I do not believe that we can stand by and allow East Devon countryside to be concreted over in this way, particularly as there's no evidence it will provide houses for our younger and less well-off residents. Concerns around the local plan is a #1 priority amongst residents, and one recently described it to me as a planning dictatorship. And if we raise concerns with the Secretary of State for levelling up, as I hope we will, we would not be alone. Many councils are speaking out about this flawed approach to planning. including Conservative-led councils such as Wokingham, Dorset and Mid Sussex. My motion is quite straightforward. It's not about stopping the local plan process. We have no choice but to continue with it or risk losing control over our planning and matters becoming even worse. So my first recommendation is that we do indeed carry on with the local plan. My second recommendation is that as well as carrying on with the local plan, we make representations to Michael Gove, the Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, calling on him to agree the fact that East Devon is covered by 2/3 AONB is an exceptional circumstance, which means that our council does not need to employ the standard methodology. And B, calling on our government to identify a more positive approach to solving the housing crisis, rather than simply the requiring of granting more and more planning permissions. And thirdly, that we aim to enlist the help of our MPs to help us support us in our representations to the Secretary of State for Levelling Up. So it's not about stopping the local plan, but it's about speaking out about what the impact of that local plan is going to have and the reality of it, which I don't believe it will help the people that need the help with more affordable homes for people that live locally. And I do believe it will be immensely detrimental to our countryside. So I hope that members will support me. And I would like to thank my seconder, Councillor Johns, and the other councillors, Councillors Pratt, Miller and Armstrong, who also supported the motion going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bailey. I've got next with Councillor Johns. Vicky, would you like to speak next, please?
Thank you, Chair. To be honest with you, I think Jess has pretty much covered it all. I think at the moment, I fully understand that we have to have a certain amount of housing, but because of the area of outstanding natural beauty we've got, the housing will all be squished into a certain area, and that area will be overrun basically, and won't be, you know, it's basically, I hate the word, it isn't fair the way that the system's been set up and all the rest of it. It's not anybody at this council's fault, but the whole thing just you know, it just isn't fair on East Devon, full stop, to be honest. But I think Jess covered it all perfectly, and I'm happy to still second her. Thank you.
Oh, that's good. What I'll do is take the supporters on this. Councillor Armstrong, Megan.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was just basically going to second that, what Jess has just said. I'm in complete agreement with it. And as she's already said, it's not about stopping the local plan process at all. But I don't remember this issue ever being discussed, certainly since I've been a councillor, and somebody may want to correct me on that, but I don't remember this ever being discussed, just as members, cross-party members, just having a real discussion about this and how the numbers are reached. As I say, I may be wrong on that, but I fully support what Councillor Bailey has said, and thank you very much for bringing it to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Going through the supporters first, I've got Councillor Miller next, please. Paul.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I was delighted to support this motion because I think this debate on this issue is long overdue. Actually, I think, you know, we have to be realistic. The Conservative government were elected on a manifesto of building 300,000 houses a year. How they were going to do that, we found out, is through a government algorithm, which I think, you know, history of government and algorithms isn't the best, as we saw last summer. I think I'm glad we're having a debate about this. My huge concern is that so many of the houses that are being built through the numbers that we have to deliver end up being eaten up really by second homeowners and buy-to-let landlords, and that really doesn't deliver for our local communities. I'm also concerned, and I think Councillor Johns has referred to this in a recent debate, that our neighbourhood plans, you know, this chink of Lib Dem light that came in the 2010 coalition to bring in these neighbourhood plans, in some ways they're not worth the paper they're written on because they're being overridden by central government. So absolutely support this motion. In my view, and I'm glad that Councillor Bailey's amended it because, you know, I was concerned, as I know others were, with the implications of it. In my view, the more councils that speak out for our residents, the better. And it'd be great if we get to a place where all councils were standing up to say, this is not working, and ask the government to change their policy, look at it again, and protect our countryside, our environment, and build homes, especially in East Devon, where we do have high housing costs and low wages. We need to build homes that our local residents can afford. And that's the message we need to send to the Secretary of State. And let's hope that other councils do the same. So I just want to thank the proposer, and I hope all members, regardless of political party, will vote through this well-meaning, very good motion this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Councillor Pratt. Jeff, I've got you on as a supporter. Would you like to speak here?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Paul Miller has mentioned about the neighbourhood plans, and quite honestly, what's going to happen is there's going to be a car crash between some of the provisions that you see in the neighbourhood plans around the wards of this district council, and there's going to be some very difficult decisions to be made by the Strategic Planning Committee when they come to finally make a decision on the draft plan, which will be going out for consultation to the public. So things are not good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Councillor Young. Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with this desire to question the housing numbers. I've been challenging these numbers for many years. They're dubious algorithms. They don't stack up. I did attend a meeting with a number of different councillors from all parties a couple of years ago with the CPRE. They did a fantastic job of demonstrating that the housing numbers were incorrect for the whole of Devon, not just East Devon. But I don't think it got anywhere. We do need to involve our MPs, definitely. And as far as I'm concerned, my ward is in the this golden triangle where development is allowed. So I have to consider the electorate that I represent. Basically, now the government policy is building the wrong houses in the wrong locations, and we need to get it right, and we need to get it right urgently. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it'd be sensible to hear from the Chair of Strategic Planning, if that's okay with everybody now. Councillor Ledger. Dan.
Very much, Chair. Just to start off, I totally agree with much of what Councillor Bailey said today. The algorithm that is imposed on us by central government is flawed. The first part of it says step one is predictions of 10-year housing growth from data used from 2014. The ONS actually have data from 2018, but due to the algorithm and it coming out falling short and lower numbers, we're forced to use the 2014 data. And I can't see that changing. I can't see the central government turning around and saying, we're actually going to reduce the amount of houses. They've put in their manifesto that they want to see 300 houses. The current model only actually delivers 250,000. So that's why there is a reason for these planning reforms coming through, is to meet that shortfall of 50,000 and where it's going to come. I think we've already seen from the planning white paper that came through, that was very much thrown out by a lot of the backbenchers, and they've gone back to the drawing board on it. Councillor Miller raised a good point on neighbourhood plans. I'd just like to draw his attention to a judgment, I think it was just yesterday, on Bloor Homes in Suffolk, and how a parish council took the district council to task. So there is precedent set, and there is a lot of weight given to neighbourhood plans that I think people don't rightly give it to. I think the only part of this amendment that does worry me is the fact that we are suggesting that we're in exceptional circumstance. Now, to do that, we would need to say to our neighbouring authorities that we cannot meet our housing needs. We would need to consult with the likes of Exeter, Teignbridge, Mid Devon, just like what Torbay are doing currently with ourselves, and it's on the agenda for tomorrow. And that will cause a delay to the local plan by doing that, because it's an added stage of consultation that we haven't yet done. What I would prefer, and may I suggest to Councillor Bailey and the seconder, that we could possibly look at lobbying the MPs for changing the algorithm that they're putting forward currently, for a fairer system that's based on actual data rather than a finger in the air. And we don't try and lobby on the fact that we're in exceptional circumstance, because I am seriously worried that with the reports that are coming out tomorrow with our housing monitoring report, I believe off the top of my head, we're at a 5.3 year housing land supply. We are, in the case of just small months, away from losing our 5-year land supply later down the line. And so any delays to the local plan could see us lose it. And that's something I think the whole district wants to avoid, because we don't want unsustainable development or undesirable development. What I'd like to see is us argue this formula later down the line, try and lobby the government for change, and hopefully then we can actually start being more strategic in the way we're working. I think we have growth imposed on us right now, rather than us deciding where growth should go, where the best places for it to go, and communities actually deciding how they prosper. That's the position that I'd like to get to, and why I empathise with a lot of the points that Councillor Bailey's making. I think we just need to be a bit more clever about the way that we do it, so that we don't have the law of unintended consequences. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Councillor Ranger, Val.
Yeah, thank you. Just briefly then, so I was concerned about the original motion, but I totally support the amendment. I think we have to be seen to try. I think we have to stand up and raise our voices with government and invite our neighbouring and beyond other councils to do the same. I think, you just got to go for volume, just make a noise and make it loud and get other people on board. So we're not alone. And I think people have to be a little bit braver about making the challenges. And so I do support this motion. Thank you. The amendment to the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Val. Councillor Howell, Mike.
Thank you, Leader. Just to back up Councillor Ledger's statement, really, I've got lots of things going through my head at present. And I think Councillor Ledger hit it on the nail on the head. We can't in the slightest stop or slow down the local plan. So if we're going to do this, and I actually have a great deal of support and sympathy for this motion, it must run alongside, not incurring into the local plan. Otherwise, we will lose our 5-year housing land supply at the end of this year, beginning of next, and we've still got a long way to go with our local plan. So we need to be really mindful of that. I also need to pick up Councillor Young's comment, because he made the comment that it was the wrong type of housing. And I do need to point out that is one thing we are in control of. The type of housing is set down by our local plan. It's not national government. National government just gives us a figure. So we need to be careful and mindful about what we're saying. But I want to support this. I really do want to support this. I've campaigned for a long time about housing numbers. I've got no qualms about that, but it needs to be very clear it goes alongside our local plan. And the housing numbers from government comes out yearly anyway, and they should be refreshed yearly. Now, with the recession probably hitting this year, those numbers are likely to drop slightly. So we could be aiming for a reduction in our local plan numbers later, beginning of next year. And of course, the local plan numbers, or correction, the housing allocation from government that we have to build only applies to our local plan at the point that the local plan is made. So provided in that year that housing numbers are lower from government, we can insert that in and slight jiggery of pokery of the local plan, lower those numbers down to that limit. So we need to be careful, but I am minded to support this, provided it runs alongside and doesn't get in the way of our local plan as it stands at present, because that's really dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Does that actually require explicit wording within the within the existing motion, or are you just happy to take it as read?
I personally would prefer rather than explicit, because we all need to be very mindful of that. So yeah, I would happily go with an amendment saying to be run alongside our current local plan strategy, and to be, if successful, then inserted in, if you get my meaning.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that?
Do you want
Yes, I will.
my motion already, or my amendment already has that expressly in it, but maybe I need to read it out again or email it to Sue to read out.
If there's confusion, I think you certainly should, Jess, please, Councillor Bailey.
Chair, can I just come in?
Yeah, please do, Mark.
Yeah, so yes, please, if Councillor Bailey could email both myself and this is how with the actual original amendment that she put in, but there is a point I think Council does need to pick up, which is the point that Councillor Ledger made. We can do a lot of lobbying short of potentially interfering or adding additional steps into the current local plan process. So if that can be acknowledged or sort of slightly amended in terms of Councillor Bailey's wording, I think that would help considerably.
Thank you for that. That's helpful. Are we in a position to get that wording clear now, Jess? Have you got it?
Yeah, I'm just emailing it over to Mark and Sue. Thank you.
Well, in the interim, can I take Peter Faithful, Councillor Faithful, would you like to speak on the motion?
Thank you, Chair. Well, funny, this is kind of a subject that really got me into politics in the first place, and a lot to do with why I stand as independent. There's a lot of talk about Conservative Party this and Conservative Party that, but as I recall, it was actually the Labour Party when they were in power, and the deputy leader came down specifically complaining about the lack of house building down here. They came out with this obscene amount of houses they wanted built down here. So to me, it doesn't matter which party you go to, they all want to chuck houses at us everywhere you go. As I've said, I sent an email out to all councillors after the last strategic planning meeting. To my mind, we should be focusing first on our local rural communities, get our affordable homes in our rural communities, sort out what we need, and then work up from there. But yeah, I do support what Councillor Bailey is saying, and I'm very, very much all for it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Peter. Do we have the wording now, Jess, please, or Mark?
I've got the wording, Chair, if you'd like me to read it out.
Well, I think it's, I mean, we've gone a little bit off piste on this one in terms of it being an amendment of an amended one already, but I think if we can be clear and then hopefully get the amendment accepted, and then we can carry on with the debate. Mark.
Okay, so I'm just going to suggest something. I was just typing it before you asked. So the motion would be amended with three recommendations. The first is a recommendation that we continue with the local plan. The second is that at the same time as continuing with the local plan, we make representations to the Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, calling on him to recognise, so these are my words that I'm adding now in case Jess says that's not what I put, calling on him to recognise the AONB designations within the district, all the other environmental constraints and considerations, and the concerns about the standard methodology and rhythm used for the purposes of allocating housing numbers, and B, calling on the government to identify a more positive approach to solving the housing crisis rather than requiring the granting more permissions, and 3, we call on our MPs to help support us in our representations to the Secretary of State for Levelling Up. So it's just it's just playing with that first bit, if you like, that a part of Jess's amendment.
Right. Do we have some thoughts on that? Is that, Jess, is that something you want to propose?
Yes, and Mark, when I was reading what I'd written, it wasn't quite the same, but Mark's Wi-Fi, I think, went a bit dodgy because he was talking very slowly, so I couldn't make it out very well. But I think, in essence, it's A, yes, we carry on with the local plan. In B, at the same time as we carry on with the local plan, we raise with the Secretary of State our concerns about the algorithm in connection with the standard methodology, the fact that we've got 2/3 AOMB and the other environmental constraints, and C, that we also are trying to enlist the help of our three MPs to help us with the representations to the Secretary of State. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, we can fine tune it, but that's the essence of it. Yeah.
Right, and I'm slightly confused as to where we sit with this, because we had an amendment of the original one and then an amendment again. So I think what
so that's it's all. My amendment is to set. So there's what's on the paper, Chair, and then my amendment to that, which I've just read out.
Right. Are we all clear what it is that we're actually discussing?
No. Chair, can we have it read out again? It was just because Mark's internet did break. So half of the second half of the amendment we didn't hear.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's a lot in it for me. It's just, this is one of those circumstances where I quite like the chat function as a way of actually circulating, you know, something like this. You can actually read it.
Can you just give me a couple of minutes to type out something, Chair?
Okay, I mean, is it something? Do you want to speak, Philip? Do you want to speak on this now, or what? We're a little bit.
Well, I can just as whereas I just said, when are we clear? I mean, it's all gone a little bit murky. So, if I might just go back to the motion itself, housing requirements in the local authority areas. When I'm actually I'll pick it up on the points. Really, what have been said, I think there's a lot of gravitas in this, and I'm going to be mindful to support it. But I only want to support it is the points that Councillor Howe pointed out quite rightly. We mustn't let it get involved in our plan or hold it up, and that point was made very well. And because we've been here before, some of us before, when we've lost our 5-year housing land supply, and then we end up with housing going exactly where we didn't want it, we lose all control, and that's a terrible, terrible place to be. And I can assure all of you, and I'm sure you understand that. But are we then? Is the motion that Jess is putting forward the wording that Mark is trying to formulate now? So what we've got here in front of us on the papers is that's not there now, and it's going to be this motion that is coming forward. Is that where you're at?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Right. And on that basis, then, Jess, I'm all behind it, because I don't think there's a councillor from whatever party you want to cover that thinks that having thousands and thousands of houses is a really good idea in East Devon. I don't think there is. But what we have to do, we have to pull on a big boy pants and say, this is what central government are sending down, and this is what we have to deal with. So we have to deal with reality, because if we don't deal with reality, we'll lose control. But what I would like to do, and I very much support what you're saying, is if we can get back to, and when you take that there was 2010, every 10 years they do the census, and that we need to have the latest census because things have moved since these figures were put together. So I think any work that we can do that works to central government to understand where we are and what we're going and what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve, we will consume our own smoke in the numbers that we need. But what we need to understand is, what are those numbers and whom are they for, and what are we achieving? And when it comes to, just paraphrase a little bit, Councillor Young said, the central government top down telling us where we can put them. No, they don't, Councillor Young. They tell us the numbers, we decide where they're going to go. We do the call for sites, we go through that process, and we decide where the houses have got to go. But what we do need to do is to have matching up between our infrastructure, what is going to be then our amenity space, along with our housing and along with the employment, because housing doesn't come on its own when we talk about development. It comes with other things, employment space being one of them, roads and infrastructure, all those other things. So the lesser number we have, you can assume we need lesser of an infrastructure to fill that, and it leaves our greenfields with a little bit more space. So that's what I'm behind. So Jess, I'm really supportive of what you're doing with this motion. And if somebody hasn't supported you on that, I'm quite happy to. But it must not get in the way of holding up the local plan. It must not do that at all, or I'm not supporting it. Thank you.
All right then. What I suggest we do is, because Philip's absolutely right, and I'm trying to compare what we're ending up in talking about now with what's actually on the papers. So what I propose to do is that first, if we can actually have your version of what you actually do think you want to propose as being the substantive motion, that we put that on the table, that we vote on that becoming the motion effectively, because it isn't the motion as it stands. Yeah. And then assuming we vote you, that you can then discuss the other contributors that at the top of the page I've still got left, can then contribute on the motion as it actually is, rather than what people think it is.
Yes.
Does that sound helpful? I'm sorry, it's a bit, I must admit, I've probably lost my grip on that a little bit, but 3 hours in, I must admit, I was flagging. So, Mark, are you the best person to read out this or send on the chat the actual definitive motion or proposal for an amendment of the motion to what it actually becomes, so we can vote on whether that becomes the substantive motion?
Yes, I think so. So if you can go to page 3 of your agenda, where you've got the current motion printed.
Yeah.
I think essentially, or that, subject to anything Jess says, you stick with the wording until you get to the words East Devon in the third line of the paragraph beginning, "It is, however, apparent." So it is, however, apparent from consideration of the draft local plan to date that the implications of pursuing this approach are not acceptable to the communities of East Devon. And then you do a full stop and you delete the following words within that, and you'd substitute, and this is why it's an amendment, you would substitute words which would be this council believes that we need to continue with the local plan, but at the same time we make representations to the Secretary of State for levelling up housing and communities, calling on him to review the standard methodology in the light of concerns about the reliability of the algorithm used and the AONB designations and other environmental constraints in the district. B, calling on the government to identify a more positive approach to solving the housing crisis rather than requiring the granting of more planning permissions. And thirdly, that we call on our MPs to help support us in our representations to the Secretary of State for levelling up.
Thank you very much. Does anybody want to specifically speak on that, or can we actually vote on that amendment, and then which would then, if it's successful, become the substantive motion, and then you can speak on that instead?
So, sorry, Chair, just as a matter of procedure, because the amendment was proposed by the proposer, you don't have to vote on that.
It's getting too late for me, I'm afraid, is this? Right, so
Chair, can I, sorry,
I just want to be, hang on a second, Leader Paul. I just want to be absolutely clear where we are, so that what Mark actually read across then is exactly what Jess wants the motion to be. Yeah?
I think so, but it's not how I would have worded it, but there we go.
Well, is that a definite maybe, or are you prepared to go with that?
I think it's a definite maybe, but I would just ask, can Mark put it in the chat, or can he just read it out again, because I was looking for the first part of because I just rewritten it basically. Can Mark just read it out again, please?
Yeah, read it out. Yeah.
Okay. So
you see why I want to get this right. I mean, you can't go forward with a motion not knowing what we're talking about.
Yeah. So you've got the wording on page 3 of the agenda, up to the words beginning East Devon insert full stop and delete the rest, and substitute the following, which is that this council proposes A, that we continue with the local plan, B, that we make representations to the Secretary of State for levelling up housing and communities, calling on him to review the standard methodology in the light of concerns about the reliability of the algorithm used and the AONB designations and other environmental constraints in the district. B, calling on the Secretary of State to identify a more positive approach to solving the housing crisis rather than requiring the granting of more planning permissions. And C, probably got too many A's and B's now. And C, we call on our MPs to help support us in our representations to the Secretary of State for levelling up.
Yeah.
That sounds fine to me.
Yeah. Good.
Right, quick, move on. So that now becomes the substantive motion then. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. So now we'll go back to finish off the speakers, hopefully, and metaphorically rather than physically. Councillor Cagle, Fred.
Thank you, Chairman. At long last, we got that squared away. Yes, I would like to just bring to the attention something that came up at planning, both at town council and at district in the past. And it was an application to build on the land next to Tesco's in Exmouth. Now, this particular thing that I want to talk about is relevant because of what Councillor Bailey said about local people actually being involved more in, the decision-making process of what should actually go forward. And here we are with a situation where we had a town council consultative planning committee who all unanimously voted against this particular application. We then had a recommendation by the officers of the planning committee for it to go forward. It was then completely voted against by the planning committee of East Devon District Council. So the organisation involved went to appeal, and today their appeal was upheld. So that thing, that development, albeit of a particular nature for a particular customer base, if you like, is going to affect the infrastructure of the town. And the people that were involved in this process to sort of talk against it was the people who wrote the neighbourhood plan. I myself represented the town council at the hearing, the Exmouth Society, and many others of the local populace. Yet, even our own officers were for this going forward. And once again, I feel that, we're not actually singing all off the same hymn sheet. And I'm really pleased that this motion's come forward, because time after time after time, we see situations where we can't even get any affordable housing built. And once again, I know there's reasons why things happen. Some of these planning processes take many years. In fact, Goodmore's Farm is an example, even before I became a councillor. But in that particular development, we have 16 one-bedroom affordable units. And to me, in a development of 350 houses, that's completely wrong. Completely wrong. We're desperate for affordable houses. We're desperate for housing that people can have. And out of the comments we received about lots of people haven't been approached by members of the public, the electorate, about car parking, I probably have more people talk to me about housing than any other subject matter. And I'm sure that that's relevant to a lot of our councillors. And I'm fully in support of this motion to make sure that, we do lobby the right people and we try and get some change into the process, because at the moment, to me, it doesn't quite seem right. That's all I want to say on the matter.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Fred. Councillor Rickson, Marion.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to go back to the comment made by Councillor Young. I was actually at the same CPRE meeting. I think at the time the Housing Minister might have been Kit Malthouse. And I asked him whether he'd read the CPRE report for Devon, and he replied, "I've read the one for Hampshire." And I said, "You're in Devon now." I think the importance placed on being Housing Minister can be adequately summed up by the fact that we've had 10 Housing Ministers since 2010. Between 2010 and 2020, 10 Housing Ministers. Clearly, government by algorithm is ridiculous, and government by flawed algorithm is even worse. So clearly this needs to be challenged and needs to be changed. Let's do it.
Thank you, Marion. Councillor Arnott, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. So I'd just like to seek reassurance. I agree with so much of what's been said before. I don't know who's the right person to answer this, Chair, but through you, I just want to make sure if we do vote for this, which seems to make so much sense, there isn't a speculative developer watching this on Zoom who tomorrow morning will challenge our 5-year land supply, because we're working incredibly hard to make sure that that is holding water at the moment. So I just want to be absolutely careful there's not some very clever lawyer for any developer out there who doesn't go, "Oh, they're up to this." So that would be really helpful for me, Chair, if anybody can help clarify that. Thank you.
Who wants to pick that one up? I mean, my only thought would be that there's nothing that we've done this evening. Bear in mind, we're carrying on with the local plan, which was absolutely crucial without stalling on it. That I can't see as anything that makes the situation any different to what it was this morning.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, but sorry, I'll pick you up after Mark, Philip, if that's all right.
Well, I think it's just to endorse your comment there, Chair. I mean, clearly, at every appeal we do into a refusal of housing, there is the risk that the appellant will challenge the 5-year housing supply, and that's last time why we ended up without one, because of a planning appeal in Ottery St Mary of all places. So there is that risk, but there's nothing in this wording which should give any comfort to the fact that we're not going to proceed with our local plan as expeditiously as possible.
Yeah, I think that was why Philip was probably keen on that as well. Was that right,
Yeah.
Philip?
Yeah.
Sorry to put words in your mouth, but I want to get on to the chapters.
Yeah. No, absolutely right, Mark. And you've said all the right things. And I don't think, for Councillor Arnott's perspective, I don't think we've said anything that gives any sort of game away. And what I was really keen on, and everybody's agreed to this, I'm assuming, is that whatever we're talking about with the amendments, it sits along us still rattling along with our local plan. That was really important. I made that point quite strongly, actually. In fact, I said if it wasn't, I wasn't going to support it. So there we go.
Yeah, you did, and I think that we're all absolutely clear on that, and that's implicit in the current motion as put, which I'm glad we've got sorted out. Councillor Sarum, Bruce, I didn't realise you were still there.
Of course, Chairman. Thank you very much for calling me. I've been following very diligently, and I do agree with Councillor Cagle about this morning's very distressing McCarthy Stone information that's come back to us. Clearly, this development, whilst it is put forward by McCarthy Stone, it's clearly not welcomed by the local excellent community as a whole, because clearly originally, as many members will know, Tesco's was going to expand, I think, put a cafe and various other things. So the McCarthy Stone proposal is totally wrong. It doesn't provide the full care that people would look for in that age group, the full package that you need for elderly people. So to me, this sort of McCarthy Stone building is totally out of character and totally out of keeping, and it's a bitter disappointment, I think, for the people of Exmouth that the McCarthy Stone project has gone ahead. And I also concur that we need to ensure that whatever we do, we maintain the 5-year housing supply of land. Otherwise, as I used to be, and I'm proud to say I was a Londoner, we had the London Docklands Development Corporation come in because councils couldn't agree how they were going to make best use of the London Docklands. And guess what? Mrs. Thatcher brought in her team, and we got houses there. And I was one one of the first to buy in the new development. So I've understood if councils can't get it right, then corporations are brought in to make sure that we do get it right. So that's the last message that I would give you. Thank you so much indeed, Chair.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Councillor Ragg, Eileen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to say that as Councillor Skinner will be well aware, because he was so keen on this, as we were here in Exmouth, that employment land was so important all the way down from Liverton Business Park right down to Tesco. And that was supposed to be for employment. Care home, it is not the right thing, not the right form of development to go there. It doesn't provide employment. If it's employment, it's very low paid employment. And McCarthy and Stone are self-contained residential properties that might require one manager on site and sometimes not even that. It's been resisted, but we have a number of those in Exmouth within a very short distance of each other, and they don't bring employment. At best, it's care for their residents when needed at a later stage in their lives. So it's a loss of employment land, and yes, much to be regretted. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Councillor Howe, Mike.
It was just a quick thing. The leader spoke earlier about appeals against our 5-year housing land supply. And I suppose it would be remiss of me not to point out we are getting close to that, where applicants will now start looking at challenging us on that very point. So we are in that danger zone. We're getting close to that danger zone, I should say. So it could happen anyway, but this motion now amended won't or shouldn't, cannot, I'll use the word cannot, make any difference to our local plan and its progress. So as such, this motion won't change that, but it is just the nature of the game we are in. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Mike. Jess, Councillor Bailey, would you like to sum up in the absence of any other speakers indicating?
Yes. Well, thank you very much for all the comments that have been made and the wording from Mark. I think it is a really important thing to follow through with. I think I agree that we don't halt or pause the local plan, but I think equally it's completely right that we raise our concerns about the algorithm in the context of our particular district. And I think algorithms in planning just do not work, and I just don't believe it's a successful an appropriate way of future developing our district or anywhere else. So I won't say any more than that. I hope people support it, and I hope that we proceed to complete our local plan in an expeditious way, which I'm sure we shall. But also I hope that we make robust representations to Michael Gove, the Secretary of State, and also our MPs support us with this, because of all the issues that people raise with me, this is the top one. So people are very concerned about it. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. On that basis, then I'll propose, I don't know whether we need to or not at this point tonight, but that the motion actually be put. So all those in favour, please, if you could vote with your green ticks, any against with the red crosses, or any abstentions with the hand, please.
Okay, Chair, I have 35 voting for, 2 against and 1 abstention.
I'm pleased to confirm that means the motion's been successful, which, unless I've found anything else here, brings our council meeting to an end. And I think that's a record in my bad books. That I think is what's 3 hours, 23 minutes. But there we go. I think we've got some important work done. The budget position is hopefully now set for confirmation on Wednesday. But it brings our meeting to an end. I'd like to thank everybody, including members of the public, for their attendance this evening. And members, can I remind you that until the Democratic Services team confirmed that the live stream you're recording is stopped, you can still be seen and heard, and any comments made may be recorded. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Chair.